Well, hello, everyone. Oh, I sound like Michael Scott doing the. Yeah, never mind. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I want to open this stream by apologizing to my friends, Jack and Sarah. I'm exhausted. If that was an appropriate joke, I apologize. But we don't need to go there. So this is the. So tired. This is the patron hangout discussion for Listening to Fear. So we're right in the middle of the. In writing this episode guide, I just kind of. I think this is the one where I sort of. Or it was Shadow where I started coming up with, like, there's really a weird kind of. Sorry. There's really a weird kind of trilogy of episodes in the middle of this season. And boy, is it a drag. Triangle, which I love, rebounds very hard from this kind of. I mean, the Buffy stuff about Buffy breaking into tears every time that she thinks about Anya and Xander breaking up. Okay, I get that. Like if you're not a huge fan, but like mostly the comedy in that episode is so good, and that whole bit with Buffy is a very Espenson thing. So I love that episode, and I think, boy, did we need a palate cleanser after this 3-episode emotional, whatever you would call this. So it's a lot, and it's kind of weird that it sort of hit right at the beginning of the year here. We are. I talked about it in the rewatch stream. For those of you who didn't see it, Into the Woods is long, very long, the episode guide for it. I think it's about 50% edited so far. I'm hoping to have it done by Sunday, but I have an appointment tomorrow. An appointment for fun. Sometimes you have to schedule those things. And then, so Monday at the latest. Made me giggle. Good, Jack. So video is late, but boy did I. Yeah, Triangle's a beast. Or not Triangle. Into the Woods is. There's a lot to say about that one. For me, there's always a big difference between episodes that maybe are just not my taste or just aren't up to the same level of technical polish or whatever, versus episodes that to me feel broken, and that explaining the difference between those two is a big deal. And also, I hate being negative, and so writing episode guides that are dedicated to. It's just not easy for me. So I have developed strategies for having that discussion with this that may seem tangential and weird to other people, but make perfect sense to me. That was all very confusing. How about we stop? Let's talk about Listening to Fear. So hopefully Into the Woods tomorrow or Monday. I'm also sick, so that's not helping. Working on Into the Woods probably feels like having a hard time to see the forest for the trees. I think I see what you did there, Josh. No, that's the thing, Sarah. Sleep-deprived Ian doesn't attempt to vamp. He vamps by accident, and then is like, oh, I'm way far afield of the thing that we're supposed to be talking about. I haven't done a solo stream in a while. Maybe we should bring the edit streams back at some point. Listening to Fear. So let's go ahead and watch the episode guide. So this is the patron hangout. After I watch the episode guide, I'm going to join into the meeting. The meeting link will be posted to Patreon at the end of the summary section of this video for people in the $5 and up group to join into the meeting and have a conversation with this. I mean, we have an awesome group. If you're watching this, you know that we have an awesome group. It's a ton of fun. We have zero expectations for. The number of times that the people in the group have blown my mind is ridiculous, and about episodes that I totally don't expect it. But that was also not our expectation. If you're looking for a group to join and have a conversation with and just fawn about how much you love the show that we all love, then that's what it's all about. This is about community, and this has become a very important aspect of all of this to me, especially during pandemic times. So, let's go ahead and watch Into the Woods. And by that I meant Listening to Fear. And play it. Listening to Fear is part 2 of the season's odd, bleak trilogy, and while there are a couple of memorable bits, really, overall,
I hate it.
pretty much sums it up. Yep, as of this one, we are caught up to me. It'll be interesting what we do after this. Company and stealing her Jell-O. Joyce is post-diagnosis but pre-surgery, reminding us of where we left things after Fool for Love and Shadow. Buffy tells Joyce that Riley and the gang are out covering for her on patrol, but the gang is kicking undead Tookus without him. For some reason, Willow's outfit stands out to me here. Neither young nerdy nor mayor of Wickistan. Sends Tara, perhaps she doesn't bother. Wickistan. She just looks like
That's
a
tough to
plain
say
old
without
boring
sounding
adult.
spitty, so
Could almost
don't
be
judge.
Giles's date. Turns out Riley was someplace else. Willow stops by for a gift of us with the Summers, and Joyce has a
I'd rip it in half and stick it in bed with me.
moment? Another of Glory's victims has a momentary
Hi,
fixation
MG.
on Dawn.
Welcome.
Resident Ben notices. Willow and Tara share one of the episode's 2 major highlights, a behind blue eyes type of moment that I've noticed a lot of fans remember but seem to forget what episode it's in. As the two cuddle, Kal-El's distant cousin Darren crashes to Earth and kills Glory's brain-white victim from earlier. The gang investigates.
So, Kal-El's distant cousin Darren, the monster is based on the fluke worm from the X-Files that has that characteristic mouth. I think it's called the Host in season 2 of the X-Files. And the person who played fluke worm in that episode was Darren Morgan, who's one of the more famous writers on the X-Files. So yeah, Darren. It's a deep cut. But those of you in the group who I know are X-Files fans probably got it. It's the ceiling turd with a face and discovers the murder. Riley sends them away and calls the government because what Season 5 really needed was a return to the authenticity and realism of the Season 4 military stuff. It's always going to kill me. Season 5 really needed was a return to the authenticity. Why is the lens cap on his scope, but it's not... is it a thermal scope? But shouldn't it be a camera? What? He looks so stupid. Authenticity and realism of the Season 4 military stuff. Buffy gets everyone home and makes the room pleasantly dark for Joyce and Godzilla's tapeworm. The gang is doing research at the University Library Astronomy section, a set I only really remember from this one episode, which is surprising because this is really kind of a neat prop.
The most recent meteoric anomaly was the Tunguska blast in Russia in 1917.
The Tunguska, as opposed to Kundusta thing, in Russia she's referring to, happened in 1908. I say odd since the Bolshevik Revolution is actually what began in 1917, and the gang figures out the demon is a queller demon, summoned to quell the rise of... Josh, that you raised an even more salient point that didn't occur to me. Who uses a sniper rifle for close quarters security anyway? Why didn't that occur to me? But that's so true. Tide of Glory's victims. Quell is a term often used in reference to rebellions. Such a specific crossing of the timetables feels curiously deliberate. Then again, in the Buffyverse, where there... Is that a spoiler, or is that... let me go back. Non-contextual. Tide of Glory's victims. Quell is a term often used in reference to rebellions. Such a specific crossing of the timetables feels curiously deliberate. Then again, in the Buffyverse, where there are vengeance demons granting wishes all the time, who knows if these events might have been altered slightly. The gang wonders who summoned Satan's Dingleberry. At home, Joyce is full-on talking to herself. Buffy puts on some groovy tunes to drown her out and starts crying. Cut to a truly unnerving scene in Joyce's bedroom, where what the orc ate for dinner last night night, falls on her and tries to kill her. Dawn comes to Mom's aid. Buffy hears the fight at the last minute and saves the day with Spike, who is once again, and unlike Riley, in the right place at the right time. And the episode ends by revealing to us that Ben was the one who summoned the Joss Whedon, and Joyce knows that Dawn is not her real daughter. Listening to Fear is probably my least favorite episode of Season 5, but Season 5 is so good, that means that bar is somewhere in the realm of, it's just pretty alright. It's okay, it's fine. I mentioned that there is a sort of informal, dreary trilogy of episodes here at the heart of an otherwise inspiring season, and this one picks up in the trilogy where Shadow left off. It feels like there's a lot going on, from Riley's continued emotional descent to Joyce's awareness of Dawn to that lovely scene between Tara and Willow to Sarah Michelle Gellar's beautiful moment in the kitchen. On the surface, it's all very busy and interesting, but
Sorry, posting the link to join the meeting now. Link to join the meeting is up on Patreon for $5 and up club.
But listening to Fear feels like it has that occasional Buffy cart leads horse problem, where the plot might have been invented to carry a theme and some symbols that were constructed well in advance. Glory has victims that are capable of detecting Dawn, the military has Geiger counters to detect the monster, Joyce's illness and Buffy caring for Dawn fit the show's allegory of growing up, crossing into a stage of life where we might have children of our own, or our parents, who raised and cared for us, now need us to do the same for them, etc., etc. But
it's funny, that scene of crying over the sink in the kitchen to me feels almost more like it belongs in season 6, and kind of her struggles with like the basement flooding and having to hit the bills and the exhaustion and all of that. It's a bit of, I suppose all of this is a bit of foreshadowing for the places we go in season 6, but this little 3-episode bit here, it's also, to me, speaks of the reason why I love season 6. And I know season 6 is generally a love it or hate it kind of season. I love season 6 because I think it grapples with these kinds of things without feeling the way this 3-episode arc in the middle of this season feels. It does not, it's dark, it's heavy, but it doesn't feel kind of bogged down and inert the way this little trilogy does to me. But the thread trying to stitch all of those disparate elements together is a crushingly heavy-handed X-Files derivative tale about the search for a killer snot monster from outer space.
I did not say that.
There is some self-awareness of the connections. Tunguska is the title of a pretty memorable X-Files episode directed by Kim Manners from Season 4, and the Queller Demon bears a resemblance to the Fluke Man played by Darren Morgan in Season 2's episode The Host. Pretty much everyone in the late 90s was borrowing from the X-Files, so no big. The problem is, we know from Buffy Season 4 that neither of the show's strengths are authenticity with science fiction or shadowy government intrigue. Buffy is way less with the...
Start with the basic mobilization pattern. 3 teams. Sweep and search just like practice.
And the...
This is your objective. Sub-T 67119.
And way more with the...
Buffy, I can't take you with me.
You're not taking me with you. I am going and I am letting you come along.
And the...
Yes, I am a lesbian.
And whenever they go back to this particular well, which mercifully isn't all that often, I can't help counting the seconds until the next magic spell or dancing demon. Dancing demon. Wait. Something isn't right here. Whatever. The result is the episode's plot feels like a slog compared to the archy bits. In terms of dramatic weight, Joyce's illness carries absurdly more for us than the monster business, but this one wastes so much time in silly scenes where I'm sitting there thinking, how in the Hecate has no one noticed that stupid ceiling turd with a face? And ignoring the one-off plot, the through-line stuff is fine, but none of those elements really get moved along by the episode. The inversion of Buffy and Joyce's relationship gets mostly dropped after this one, and the only development otherwise is Dawn starting to suspect something is up. This feels like 10 minutes of interesting holding pattern material, handled all very clunky and repetitively.
You're nothing. You're a shadow.
Yeah, we get it, guys. Listening to Fear also contains a heavy dose of some of Buffy's 5th season that is aging poorly.
There's no data.
Those eyes, they're like gasoline puddles.
Can't loiter.
There's no loitering. That's why I'm a cat.
The season's portrayal of mental illness. Now, before anyone gets surly with me and tells me it's an old fantasy show and I should lighten up, let me make my usual acknowledgments. These are not indictments. Historical context matters, and that is one of the reasons the term dated exists. But part of celebrating what works and what we still love today means acknowledging what doesn't, not simply pretending it doesn't exist. There's a simple acid test for this sort of thing. Does the story give the controversial issue or historically marginalized group the same sort of relative human value, dignity, or justice it normally provides its main characters? The Buffyverse can be pretty good about this kind of thing. Already in Angel's season, running parallel to this one, we had Judy and Bethany's stories. Both were shown to have agency and value.
You got the power. Use it.
And the funny thing about that episode is that exists in season 2 or season 1 with I Fall to Pieces. It basically has a very similar ending of like Kate having to tell Angel he stole her power and the only person that can get it back is her, and him kind of do it. But it feels so contrived in that episode, and it works beautifully in Untouched. So it's a very similar recipe. It's just a matter of cooking it up in a different way and the show being a little bit more mature, and I don't know. It's funny how similar those two formulas are between those episodes, but one of them is a home run to me, and the other one is one of my least favorite episodes in that season. It clunks.
Examples where the Buffyverse got this wrong might be the text ignoring the sexual violence committed against Riley by Faith in Who Are You, even going so far as implying he had some responsibility for his own assault, or the twins that were sleeping with the magic mojo Jonathan in Superstar. Everyone, including Xander being attracted to Jonathan, is humorous until the episode literalizes it with the twins. The twins are even used for humor again at the end of the episode when Jonathan pitifully tells Buffy,
and the twins moved out,
as though she is supposed to feel bad for him. This specific repetition of the Revenge of the Nerds or 16 Candles' ignorance of consent is so odd because 2 seasons later the show revisits almost exactly the same scenario with Jonathan, but does so with strikingly different results.
That's one of the most memorable scenes in that season, and got me. 6 is going to be a ton of... I was going to say fun. I don't know if 6 is going to be fun to talk about, but I get excited about the difficult or challenging discussions because, you know, I get so excited about them that I talk about them in episodes that they have nothing to do with. But I love that they revisited, again, the same ideas, issues of consent, but like in this, it's a very affecting, in season 6, it's a very affecting moment.
So, the question remains, does the episode give the issue of mental health and the people affected by it relative human value, dignity, or justice? Well, Joyce's bout of aphasia does feel gritty, unpleasant, and real. There are a couple of nice moments here and there where Buffy supports her sister, and that's just about the only positive thing I can say about the portrayal. On the negative side, you have the fact that the symptom comes completely out of nowhere for Joyce and is never seen again after this episode. The season is playing with the idea of sanity as an element to its theme.
I think there's something that happens in people's brains when there's something wrong. It's like a short circuit. And it makes them feel like nothing's real except for them.
But ignoring that, this all seems to exist for a bit of unpleasant drama in a single episode. However, all of that feels like an exercise in profound subtlety in comparison to the episode's most damning bit, which is the fact that Mr. Butthole Chin the intern murderizes 6 human beings by summoning the Queller Demon, the trail of brain-sucked victims that Glory has been amassing. Now, surely this will come to light, right? Remember when Faith stabbed one teensy, weensy little government employee by accident, no less, and we had to endure a couple of episodes of Buffy being all like, wow, morals and stuff. Surely Ben gets the same treatment, or receives some kind of justice specifically for the fact that he murdered 6 people.
Spoiler alert.
He doesn't. Transgressions are immediately forgotten by the next episode, and there are even points in the upcoming season where we're expected to either like or feel bad for him. Ben, who murdered 6 people.
I hate it.
Returning to our test, the reason why that is because none of the 6 people in this episode are considered people
by the script. They're just quote-unquote crazy. Still though, as with any episode of the show, there's an unforgettable moment or two. From the aforementioned Tillo, Warm and Fuzzies to Sarah Michelle Gellar's breakdown in the kitchen. I'd always thought the tune on the radio Buffy turns on was especially strange. After all, the show has used many popular tunes at this point, and this season's score by Thomas Wanker has been cinematic and at times beautiful. But this song is so different. The same bits, over and over and over again. Usually episode titles allow for a couple of different interpretations. We discussed in the previous how Riley has been listening to his own fears about Buffy for a while now, and those fears have been shaping his perspective on the world, vectoring the shape of his downward spiral. Earlier parts of the season felt so comforting in the ways they represented the day-in, day-out stability of familiar life, but shadows can creep in when we aren't paying attention. A moment ignored because you told yourself you'd get back to it when there was time. A test. Things unaddressed begin to pile up, and that whisper of fear becomes a hum. Eventually, that noise becomes the loud, driving, cacophonous weight of the world that can't be ignored as we come crashing to its final destination that now feels inexorable, inevitable.
Death wish.
Despair.
And also, some of the stars we're looking at don't even exist anymore. And the time that it takes for their light to reach us, they've died, exploded. Poof.
Well, that was cheating. Family is the first Whedon written in... Listening to Fear. And all for the sake of video symmetry. Sorry. That's my bad, everyone. The guide is much better than the episode. Thank you, Tina. Yeah, I don't have any complaints about that one. I wish that I'd highlighted Dawn's bravery in going and defending her mother and attacking the monster after her mother had already accused her of not existing. Dawn does not get enough credit for being a brave, interesting, or believable, fun character. So I wish that I had done that. But otherwise, I think that was about as much as I was capable of doing with listening to Fear personally. But fun part about that a bunch of us do this. There are a lot of great Buffy podcasts out there. We all distill something different from it based on our own experience, and I love that. All right, just a second. Oh, that's gonna get old, and it's gonna be the entire time. Hi! Oh, I forgot to bring you guys back in. And boop. Jack, can you give me a sound check?
Copy that, Captain, loud and clear.
Da 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 da. All right, I'm stopping. Sarah, can you lead us off real quick?
Right. So Ian's tired, so I'm going to do this bit. So we have 3 rules. First is that these discussions are fully spoiled unless any member of the anyone in the chat itself says that they haven't finished everything. So speak now or forever hold your. No, none of the Patreon people have yet to finish the episode. Cool. So it'll be fully spoiled for the Buffyverse. Number 2, please treat everybody with respect. This isn't the place for a thirst stream, and don't be rude.
Wait, and that can I thirst after Jack?
We all Jack is the obsession. We all thirst after.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Jack consents. And the last one's a bit complicated. So the chat can go all over the place. And sometimes things get, weird or awkward. So Jack and I try to keep an eye on things. Like this is in the specific the YouTube chat. And if things are getting weird or whatever, then we'll then we might nudge you a bit to kind of drop a topic. And we'd really appreciate if you just go with us, just listen. We're just trying to keep everything going and pleasant for as many people as possible. So you can hate me if you need to hate someone for that. You can hate on me. I'm the heavy. Jack's good cop. So yeah, those are the things that you need to know for today.
Thank you, Sarah. And before we go any further, first of all, hi everybody. I'm sorry, I just came in singing the Depression song and didn't say hello. Hi. Lovely to see all your faces. Who went last time? Was it Josh? Anyone remember? Not to defer you guys doing my job to you guys. Words are hard. I'm a little bit sick. I apologize. It's also kind of par for the course. You guys know the drill at this point. Yeah.
I think the person who was last is not here today.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, let's I see a couple of new faces too. Lovely. Love it. We'll say hello. For people's first times, I tend not to do the timer, but the rest of the time I run a timer for because I want to ask you questions about like how you came to the show and favorite episodes and where we are in the season and stuff. But if you've been here before, I try and keep it to about 10 minutes so we all so we get out in here in around 2 hours. We're not going to the way I'm babbling, but we'll try. Sarah, let's start with you. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Guess what today is?
What's today?
It's my 2-year anniversary on YouTube.
Congratulations. Yeah, awesome. What's highlights? Well, we don't want to do lowlights. Favorite part of the last 2 years?
Gee, I get some lovely comments. I think that's my highlight, is especially on my Harold and Maude video. It's very niche, but I get lots of lovely comments, and I still can't believe that my Buffy one has been up for 2 years without a single dislike.
Yeah.
It's like 6,000 views and not just like.
One of my friends, we've been friends since I was 6. Yeah, by the way, that beats me. I don't have a single video that doesn't have a dislike. So well done. But I have a friend too who we've been friends since we were 6, and he said at first he would go out of his way to hit dislike on every video so that I knew that he had seen it. Yeah, kind of weird. I think my favorite comment is I needed to hear that. I love when you when we can find something about a particular piece of media that hits that sort of emotional beat for someone. I think that is, there is no joy that then you sort of created the art from the art, which is I think the goal of doing this. Tell me, what is your favorite part? Go ahead.
I can tell you my favorite comment.
What's your favorite comment?
I think I've shared it with you before. The guy who wrote me 7 paragraphs.
Yeah.
Mansplained to me for 7 paragraphs. It was art.
Well, you
give us a dramatic reading of it.
You get those. I get the people telling me how much I hate men and how much of a beta I am and how much I hate men. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Well, congratulations.
You
said you had something for listening to Fear.
Yes, I actually do have something for listening to Fear. Oh, and yeah, can I say that tomorrow at 4 Pacific, which is this time, Jack, Josh and Ian and I are going to be watching Star Trek V live stream.
Yes. What does
Yes,
God
the final-
need with the
the final
starship?
frontier. Exactly.
Yeah,
it's not good, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's I can be a bit of a Boris for that one. I say with Boris in the room and with a lot of love, which is like, I'm definitely a Star Trek V apologist, where I'm like, I get, but that part's so good, and yeah, Jack's not gonna watch it, Boris. He hasn't seen Star Trek 4,
and Jack
or
needs
the other
to.
ones yet. Jack has seen 1 and 2. So I see what you're doing. You're trying to get out of talking about listening to Fear. By the way, when we're done here, put the link to that. If you have the stream already set up, go ahead and throw it in chat. If you want to watch us talk about Star Trek 5.
Right, yeah, Star Trek V is more fun to talk about than listening to Fear.
Yes, there are many things more fun than talking about than listening to Fear.
But I think this is
Fiber.
one of your most artistic videos because you really did manage to pull like some gems out of a pile of crap.
Thank you. Yeah, the figuring out that song choice at the thing always struck me as so grating that it had to have been. And I mean, no offense if it's a particular genre or style of music that I am unfamiliar with. It just is unusual within the texture of this show where you have pop tunes, you have all the tunes at the Bronze, you have all of that. So to have that in there and in that particular moment struck me as deliberate commentary of some sort. And that was what I got out of it, was sort of the ebb and flow of daily living eventually grinding us to nothing.
Yeah, and just sort of trying the things we do to try not to think about things.
Mm-hmm.
I think is one sort of place that I'm going, apart from what I think you covered very well in that episode, which is treating people with, mentally ill and neurodiverse people as disposable non-people with no consequences for killing them.
Right.
We set things on fire for that.
And the most common counter response I had to that was, they're not technically mentally ill, but coding's a thing in fiction. Like, whether these people are magically the way that they are, it really wouldn't change the idea that they're coded as mentally ill.
And if they're not mentally ill, then what are we saying? They're neurodivergent? They've got acquired brain injury?
Sure.
My mother has an acquired brain injury.
And the problem persists. It's a weird thing to defend.
Saying somebody is, disposable. And,
right.
And we do not treat humans as disposable.
Yeah, and the strange thing is the guy who gets jumped by the monster at the beginning of the monster's tenure on the episode was begging for his life to glory in the previous episode or the one before that, where he's saying, I have a wife, I have a child. There's this moment where they at least attempted empathy and an inner life for this character, and I love that. I love that treatment of him in those scenes of please don't hurt me. And then all of that relevance and all of that, he's a mechanism in the plot and nothing more in this particular episode. So it's still a problem.
Yeah, it's treated like it's a mercy killing or something, and like that. Like,
yeah.
are we drawing from the Nazis? Because that's Nazis.
Yeah. Like quelling or
Nazis, definitely.
yeah, quelling or whatever it is. It's not pretty, and the later treatment of Ben as a dating potential for Buffy to me makes it even worse because I never can get past this moment again.
Yeah, like, would the Queller go after you and I with our ADHD? Like, it's just like.
Yeah, it has ramifications all the way down to the Gift, where I think we're supposed to feel some empathy for him. And so that the moment where he turns and starts working with Glory to take Dawn feels like a darker turn or more of an evil moment than it already was, because he killed 6 people.
He killed 6 people, but he said he's been cleaning up messes after Glory his whole life. How many other victims are there?
I didn't put that together. Yeah, and then to top it off, to show that they are curable, that Willow had the ability to cure them, makes it even more baffling. You know,
Yeah, Thomas in chat has just said that's some eugenics crap. And yeah, this is eugenics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what we say fraught, and it's too bad because there are a couple of the ceiling moment where they're looking at the stars is beautiful. The bit over the sink is beautiful. I love her conversation with Joyce at the end where she says she does belong to us, though, is affecting and beautiful, and it's the idea of chosen family again in the scene. It's just the stuff around it that is not a lot of fun.
And you could have done something interesting where it actually interrogated the way that society does treat mentally ill people as disposable.
Yeah.
You could have done something with that. I said that in the watch that the design of the thing kind of reminds me of Farscape, and Farscape would do something different with it because Farscape would go there.
Yeah. Well, it reeks of Doomed a little bit. This episode feels a little bit like just not having enough time and needing to get your pieces in a certain place for Into the Woods.
Yeah. But speaking of Doomed, Riley.
Yeah.
So I have thoughts on Riley's arc. I think I've said before that I think they don't know they're doing it, but they are kind of doing what patriarchy does to men.
Okay.
How because it's toxic to everyone. Because while we're dealing with mental health stuff badly, he is literally dealing with mental health stuff badly. Because I read him as depressed at this point in the series. He's lost his job, and particularly since Out of Mind, I think he is rudderless.
Yeah, he's floundering.
And he doesn't know how to have a life or build anything without the structure that he's been indoctrinated into, without what he's been taught. And so he is struggling with I think he is depressed. And he has no tools to deal with that. So what we see him doing is we see him self-medicating with drinking, and we see him self-harming with the suck jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think he doesn't have the capacity to ask for help. And so we see him projecting Buffy's Buffy's not asking for help. What he sees is Buffy not leaning on him. He's projecting that onto her because he's not seeking help, seeking support for what he's going through. He's being self-destructive instead.
I see where you're going.
She's just trying to get through shit, right?
She's coping with actual events. He's creating events to cope with that wouldn't be there otherwise. Yeah, that's interesting. I like it. I like it. That's an interesting reading.
Yeah, and when you are depressed, and a lot of men who don't know how to ask for help and have been told that it's a weakness and whatever,
yeah,
do end up self-medicating with alcohol or doing self-destructive things. Not only men, but I think it's a very common way in which men are harmed because our society teaches them not to ask for help. That is a weakness, and we see him start also in this to also start using work as medicine as well, because he immediately goes back to what he knows, even though, as you talked about, he outgrew it. In the last season, he goes back to it because it's what he knows. It's out from
the familiar.
Instead of dealing, yeah.
It's definitely one of the things that makes the ultimatum in the next episode. incredibly stupid. But yeah. What was the other thing you said that? Sorry, I'm sick. So
That's okay. You're a bit burned out.
Little burned out. Usually that push gets me to the end of a video, but it did not get me to the end of Into the Woods. Yeah, I'm floundering. Was there anything else that you wanted to throw out about the episode? By the way, I think I remember what it was. At some point, I think in season 3 or 4, I started to hit on the fact that, like, first of all, it's debatable whether at this point whether or not Joss set out to create a feminist parable, or Buffy ended up that way because he subverted an old horror trope and got a lot of credit for something that was not his original intent. But whatever, right? Buffy, the final product that Buffy ended up being was, for its time period, a very progressive feminist idea. But one of the things that I always felt was lacking from it was, like, in that process of tearing down sort of masculine archetypes, toxic male archetypes, it provides many visions of strong femininity in Cordelia or Buffy, or and even sort of troubled but overcoming those troubles with Willow. But it never does the same for it tears down masculine archetypes but never puts something in its place. The closest is Giles, but
Giles doesn't lift up any of the other men.
No. Xander's relationship, if you watch the show and take into account Xander's relationship with Giles treats Xander terribly throughout the course of the show, where he has kind of unlimited patience with Willow and Buffy, especially Willow, who is troubled in later seasons. There is no masculine ideal or masculine role model provided in the series, where there are many feminine versions, and there's a spectrum of, like, well, if you're like, it subverts the bitch and turns it into a mantle of power for Cordelia, something that she draws strength from, as opposed to something that needs to be, that she's supposed to be sort of quiet and soft-spoken or whatever. I'm not a whiny little cry Buffy. But while they grappled with, the closest maybe is the Zeppo, where they sort of entered into that conversation about those things there. And I understand that that's not what... Yeah. And I understand that that's not what Buffy is about either. Like, Buffy is about Buffy, and so it makes more sense that there are... that it's more slanted towards her perspective and the feminine perspective and so forth. Nonetheless, as we get later on and you sort of have more Rileys and whatever, all the way to him in season 7, I just started, and the eventual breakdown of the only sort of admirable male presence on the show in Giles, I just sort of started craving that balance a little bit. It didn't need to be a 1-to-1, but to have one, I think would have been of value. But I think it could point to the fact that the thing that the show was originally credited for, it was not what it set out to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's also like it's a general issue with 90s feminism is that it didn't consider men. There was the sort of new male thing, but it wasn't really, a discussion of masculinity in feminism. And I'm very much one of those feminists who believes that feminism that isn't intersectional and doesn't include men is doomed. Because we just, like, we can't leave out half of the human race from the desire, from the work. Plus, if we don't address how, people are raised to be men, we're going to also end up neglecting a bunch of women who were unintentionally raised as men.
Well, I like, my personal theory is that given that nature abhors a vacuum, once you tear down those things without offering something healthy in its place, other things come in by way of social media and all of that. But that's a conversation for a different topic. That's just where my brain went.
I do think that Riley was, in some ways, intended to be a masculine role model, because I think he is Xander's role model. But it just, like, it's so hollow.
Well, I think Xander was intended to be. Yeah, Xander was intended to be that too, and he's not. But I mean, I think that points to things that we don't want to bring into this conversation in terms of blind spots for certain creators. But nonetheless, I do need to move on and chat with other people. Congrats on your anniversary. Let me go to Emmy. Emmy, hi. Hi, how's it going? Your volume's a little soft for me. That maybe me is the only problem.
I'm not very tech savvy, sorry. I don't know how to fix that.
That's okay. I just tried to turn my volume up all the way, and I am loud. So maybe it's the balance between the two. I'll Hi, how you doing? Have you been here before?
No, I'm like a proper lurker in the comments. I haven't been part of the video chat before.
Well, I recognize your username. Welcome, welcome. Always nice to see new faces. What is your experience with the show? When did you first watch Buffy? Have you seen all Buffy and Angel? I'm sure you have, but just for the benefit of everyone else.
I've seen all of Buffy, like, I don't know how many times, like maybe 20 times. So many times. I've seen Angel probably once all the way through. I know. I've watched
you're one of those.
Yeah, I know. It's like season 4 of Angel. I kind of dipped out of.
Yeah,
but
I get it.
My sister loved it when I was younger, and she just introduced me to the whole thing. So, you know.
Turning off the air conditioner so I can hear you a little bit better.
I'm so sorry. I don't.
No, it's totally fine. I can hear you well enough. I just want to not miss any words. So your sister loved Angel season. Your sister loved Angel.
Loved Buffy, Angel, all of it, and
yeah,
the whole thing. So I think she was probably of the age when it was like airing, and then introduced me to it a little bit later. But I was, I don't know, I was a teenager when I first saw it. So
I had one of those. Actually, the friend who goes and downvotes every one of my, or used to go and downvote every one of my videos, so that I would know that he had watched it, because there would be one downvote on the video. He watched. We grew up the same age as Buffy while it was airing, and he was watching it live and kept telling me that I should watch it. But given the name, and I was one of those boys, I was just like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That doesn't sound like something I would be into. And he will not let me live it down now that we're 40-year-old old guys. And he told me to watch it, 15 years ago. I'm curious about, because eventually I'm going to have to write about it. Angel season 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Enough of a block that you haven't gone back and watched again? Like,
I mean,
what do you think of season 5?
I watched season 5 before I watched season 4.
Oh, okay.
So, no, I was introduced to it weirdly because I watched the whole of Buffy before I even touched on Angel, and then season 4. I watched season 5. I think as it was airing. I think with my sister, and then I went back and watched the whole thing, and then I kind of got to the point where, like, I don't know, Connor and Cordy, was that season 4? Yeah, I can see someone laughing. Yeah, I think, yeah, and then I just kind of, I've watched Buffy so many times, it's so ingrained, and I know every episode. Like,
you're not a. What you're saying is
separate the two, I guess. Maybe
you're not a fan of Oedipus.
I'm not a true fan, I guess. Maybe.
Well, no. Anyone who would flaunt that, no, that's ridiculous. I think even someone who hasn't watched Angel, there's no such thing as true fan one way or another.
But I'm just interested because even the short, like, Spin the Bottle is in season 4. That's the and then you have the Jasmine stuff in the mini arc at the end. There's some good stuff. All you have to do is...
I'm not as familiar with it, though. That's the thing. You can probably reference a lot of stuff, and I won't remember. It was a long time ago that I watched any of that.
Huh. No, I am not. I'm just interested in your journey with the show. I'm not casting aspersions one way or another. So we're on season 5. I think I've seen you in some of the... Jack says, remove the Connor Cordy banging, and he thinks he likes that season. Yeah, well, that's a lot to remove. That's kind of like, I don't know exactly. I was going to say remove the body, but that's highly inappropriate, because you're talking about high art versus absolute disgust. I don't know, and it does make me think about Oedipus, and think about, was the reaction to Oedipus when that was first performed back in the day the same sort of thing of that? Just going to that material seems so bizarre to me, let alone the assassination of Cordelia's character that was occurring in that season, which is to me a different conversation. Well, anyway, sorry, we're not talking about Angel season 4. Tell me where Buffy season 5 kind of is for you in the pantheon of episodes and pantheon of seasons. Like, what's your favorite season? Are you a high school fan or a post-high school fan? Fill me in.
I love the overarching whole season of season 5, and I used to say that season 4 was probably the overarching theme of that was my least favorite. But if you're looking at individual episodes, I think actually season 4 has a lot of my favorites in it.
It does. That front half is amazing.
Yeah, there's so many, because when I introduced my friend to Buffy over lockdown, and she watched. I had the best voice notes from her. She was watching it, and she's like, "Oh my god!" And season 4, a lot of those episodes were the ones that she commented on. I was like, "Oh my god, yeah, that is that's one of my favorites as well." But season 5, I don't know. Overall, I think that's one of the best. And season 2, I love season 2.
Season 2 is amazing. Yeah.
Season 3 is really good as well, because it's the end of the school stuff is so good. But the body is one of the best bits of TV I think I've ever seen. And this episode specifically, there's so much in it that you've already commented on loads that I just is not the best. But the scene where she's at the sink, it's with the music, and it reminds me so much of the body when she opens the door and she hears the music, or she hears the noise from the street, and she's just listening to
the ambient sound, and the comment she hears children playing in the distance.
Yeah, and there's someone's playing music, and it's just the her world has stopped, and then the rest of the world moves on, and it's just that moment as well where she's at the sink, where she's just yeah, I don't know, it just resonates as well. I love it so much. And then the bit where she's talking to her mum at the end as well, and where she's saying where you said about the found family, that is just great. I love it.
Yeah, that's that particular lesson kind of took me a long time to internalize personally, and I think it's one of the more valuable themes of the entire series is the idea of chosen family when talking about these things. What do you think of the monster?
It's really I mean, it's the first space monster that you see in Buffy. It feels a little bit out of the box. I don't hate it. I mean, there's been worse ones and worse episodes, but it feels a bit jarring. Do you know what I mean?
A bit much.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a giant cockroach. And with the whole, I think Sarah and you were talking about the mental health thing. It is maybe a bit insensitive as well. It's just really difficult to kind of be oh, this is the greatest one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I don't. I think you were in the rewatch. Jack and I were I've not really narrowed on why that monster design feels to me to be incompatible with the other dramatic stuff that's going on in the episode. And Jack was thinking I was talking about offended by its design. I'm not offended by its design, but there is something to it feeling a little tasteless. Because it was a choice by the creators. They paired that with that. So yes, that demon exists. That demon is in the world and so forth. But there was still a decision made to pair that with these themes and ideas, and that feels tasteless to me.
I know I'm jumping a bit, but I also wanted to just comment. I hate the fact that Ben is the one that summoned him, and you have to have a sympathy for him later. I lost all sympathy for him in this episode because it's just he's the cause of so many innocent people's deaths.
Yeah, the thing is,
I guess process that because they're not focused on, but it ruined it for me.
I compare that moment to Faith in the alleyway, and that's not a good comparison because it was an accident with Faith, and she's clearly grappling with guilt and pain over the whole thing, and it drives her character in a particular direction that it wouldn't if that event had not happened. And this event is completely irrelevant to Ben and his arc.
Yeah, it's like the consequences of the action, whereas you see that with Faith, you see it, and I remember the episodes in Angel where she was dealing with it as well, but it's the same issue I have, and I don't want to get into the whole thing, but with Xander, because he does a lot of things where he has no consequences. And it's the same thing with Ben. He does this thing and he has no consequences. And Xander's the one to point out a lot of the time when someone else does something.
Yeah, in Into the Woods. I'm trying to develop. I think it's a tough concept to tackle that I really have not worked on at all. But it was relevant the last episode, and it is incredibly relevant in Into the Woods. So I've constructed I've stolen a way of talking about these things and talking about intent. I don't like to get in the idea of creator intent, and I also don't like to throw the writers under the bus one way or another, but you have to talk about the opinion the episode has. Does the episode have an opinion about did Xander do wrong? Does the episode have an opinion about the humanity of the mentally ill in this episode? You have to talk about those things in these kinds of discussions. And so I have an interesting way of doing it with Into the Woods that we'll get into. But I do need to move forward. Is there anything else you want to throw out about Listening to Fear?
Not really. I don't know. It's really. I feel a bit overwhelmed talking to people in front of you.
Oh yeah, so no.
I into the background now.
I was an introvert before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and now I have pandemic brain where I'm just like, what? Go outside and see faces? I don't understand. But
no, I mean, if there's anything I can talk about or want to talk about is Buffy. So
yeah, perfect.
Forward, and now I'll just.
Well, you are among your people. I promise. So glad that you came. I'm gonna go over to Lady Eternal, and then I'm gonna go to Emily. Lady Eternal, hello.
Hi,
you found the link. I'm sorry, I saw your message in the rewatch chat, and I made a note to send it to you directly through Patreon, and then I am sick and it's a lot. I apologize.
That's okay. Sarah bailed you out.
Well, I'm glad Sarah had my back. Thank you.
She does. She's a good one.
How's it going?
It is going pretty well, actually. It's been a busy month. May always is. But, we're back in the swing of things now. I know how Emmy feels because, I'm also an introvert when I'm not on YouTube under a pseudonym talking about Buffy.
Hey, it's this weird. This group is a very strange proposition. I know people
like I'm public, but to the everyone's willingness to come here and to be a part of this group, I think also helps create community for everyone that's watching, and to just like, you know, that feeling of just feeling not alone and feeling connected and all of that, I think is sometimes in short supply. So I love that people, even people who wouldn't do this kind of thing normally, are willing to come here and do this. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I love doing it, honestly. I vacillated about doing it for a long time after I became a patron, and then I said, you know what, I'm just going to dive in and go for it. And you guys have been so great, and I love it. So...
Well, I'm sure the lurker experience is not an uncommon one. So yeah. Well, we're talking about listening to Fear. Tell me about the episode.
Well, number one, I was watching the X-Files back when it was originally airing.
Yeah.
So I immediately, when this episode aired, caught the fluke monster correlation, and I was just like, why? Why? Because the fluke monster was, you know, the coolest thing about the fluke monster episode was that, you know, Mulder line where he's like, is there any way I can get this stuff off my hands without betraying my cool exterior? You know?
Yeah. Well, we were talking about in the rewatch, like, the design fit the context. You know, the X-Files, he was in the sewer. You know, he was designed to look like a particular... There was a reason for him to look the way that he looked. And that scene of Mulder having to go in the sewer at the end of the episode was harrowing and terrifying. Yeah.
It was. And they didn't build the same tension in this episode with this monster that they did. And it always just felt... And I know what you're saying about it feels like it's in poor taste. I would have to say, honestly, I don't think there's a demon they could have come up with that would have been purposed to eliminate the victims of Glory's brain sucking energy that would have felt like it wasn't in poor taste, because the entire concept of just that these are just essentially Glory's nuclear waste that has to be cleaned up. There's no way a demon of any kind, of any design, is going to look like something that isn't going to be just goofy in comparison to the gravity of what they're actually talking about.
You have a fundamental problem from the eugenics idea to begin with, for sure. But like, my point was that these sort of high gravity, emotional, dramatic things that the characters that we love and treasure are going through, pairing that with a snot monster barfing on Joyce's face is so bizarre and so they don't go together. They don't go together. You know, it's so emotionally dissonant, those two experiences.
I would say, if it was the gentleman, would the gentleman going through carving out their hearts have been any less dissonant in that episode, in that context?
I think you have an original problem with the idea of, and the problem doesn't actually even exist yet. Like, for all intents and purposes, Ben could just be a horror. He could be the big bad of the actual big bad at this point in the season. That's what that sets up. Is if you're going to treat those people like people, then Ben needs to be a monster and the big bad of the season. And he could have been at this point in the series. And if that were the case, then I suppose the treatment of it is still off and wrong. But at least it's leading to... But at least what it is leading to makes sense in the context of those events. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think the only thing that I can really say about the fact that it was Ben, especially the part where he's talking about cleaning up Glory's messes, is when you get later to where they go to the apartment and Glory's got all the amazing furnishings and all of the wealth and the splendor, and Ben's just got this little closet off to the side where there's nothing of him there. I think they were grappling with a lack of development of the idea that Ben actually, while he's a soul being, he doesn't have a conscience. because he's sharing his body with a hell god since he was an infant.
Yeah.
So that juxtaposition didn't allow him to develop the conscience necessary to see any human that was associated with Glory as a human. I mean, he's wanting to become a doctor, he's wanting to become a healer, and yet at the same time, he sees these particular humans as something to dispose of. So you could make the argument that they were groping towards that idea, but they never realized it.
Yeah, the the metaphor is like Buffy is the call to be a slayer, or excuse me, Glory is the distillation of being the slayer by itself. It's the cold, hard reality of death and murder and all of that. And then Ben is Dawn, the human desire, the desire for a life. Like it was a case of the metaphor kind of leading the fiction a little too much, where it started to feel that was obviously all pre-set up from Advance, and then they tried to fill in the gaps in reverse from there, and it didn't it's almost like the event where Faith goes and becomes develops the relationship with the mayor, which to me is the greatest, like that balance of those two in that season is the greatest big bad little bad balance. It makes the mayor so much more interesting. Faith's story is so compelling. It is wonderful. But that event that drives her to go and sign up with the mayor, to me at the time in the show, ended up feeling a little strange, but led to the most organic big bad experience that I think exists in the series.
It does. And I think that the reason why it develops so organically and comes off so well, whereas this feels like there's pieces missing, is because they're writing to the metaphor instead of to the characters. And when you're not writing to the characters and having things progress naturally from the character's perspective, you're writing specifically in service of an event or a metaphor, it loses something in translation. And I'm an amateur writer. I don't write anything published. I've never worked on anything remotely resembling film and television. So I'm not saying I or anybody else could have done any better. But at the same time, when you see the finished product and you see that it's writing to the metaphor instead of to the characters, you can see that it doesn't organically follow.
Yeah, Boris pointed out that Faith was never originally intended to be the villain that season. And what my point was that event of her going and signing up with the mayor, to me, felt like something that was not planned in advance. But it led to some of the most organic character development of those two characters that is in that season. And if anything, you had some Jungian shadow self going on between Buffy and Faith and all of that, but there wasn't this ornate, constructed theme that every single character plugged into in quite the way there is in Season 5, and I think that ends up being Season 5's greatest strength and the source of a lot of its shortcomings.
Yeah, and I think that as far as this episode is concerned, it has so much that it's trying to do as a turning point in the middle of the season, as well as in this kind of middle of this 3-episode arc, exiting Riley out of the show on a permanent, on a semi-permanent basis. There's a lot sitting on its shoulders, and it was trying to get it all done. And I don't think that I just get the feeling that the writers were like, the more important part of this is showing how Buffy is trying to deal with everything that's going on without having anybody to rely on. And the monster is something incidental for her to kill, because when it all gets too much, if she can go on a hunt, but she can't just go hunt a bunch of vampires right now because her mother's just post-biopsy is pre-surgery.
Right.
So it's, this gives her something to kill in the meantime. And it doesn't, it it almost feels like there's so much that's in this that it doesn't quite bake all the way through.
Yeah. MG in chat says writing to the metaphor versus writing to the character is an interesting concept for my brain to chew on. And I think I definitely, I think I would add to that writing to the plot. I prefer writing to the character to any of those other. I think all are necessary and valuable, but at the end of the day, I think what we become frustrated with are those moments where we go, Buffy wouldn't do that, or this character wouldn't do that, or whatever it may be. So yeah, it's a weird episode. It feels, this 3-episode run feels like connective tissue, and Into the Woods feels the least that way, because I think that the other two were intended to get us to Into the Woods. So the connective tissue episodes in Buffy, like Iron Team and all of that, to me, you always feel the pieces moving. You know, you're not involved in their lives. You're not just sort of lost in the story. You feel them being pushed to a particular point to set up a story that is going to feel that way. And this one suffers from that for sure.
Yeah, and especially when you start bringing in the whole kind of external thing that Riley's going through, where he's so separated from everything that's going on that he and the pseudo initiative military guys, you know, black berets, whatever we're calling them at this point, come swooping into Buffy's house at the last minute where she's already killed the thing, and he doesn't even know that it is going on other than that they tracked it to that location.
Right.
It just feels very tacked on. That part feels so tacked on, extraneous, as a, you know, you could have left that out entirely and the episode itself would not have changed. Other than the fact that leaving that out means that you're not seeing what the writers are trying to apparently show us as a further progression towards Riley's decision to leave.
Yeah. Well, all of this, the payoff, if that word applies, is coming up. So we'll have a much more specific and clear conversation about it at that point. Is there anything else you want to throw out about Listening to Fear?
Tangential to this,
okay.
Was, and I don't know if this is technically cross promotion, but there's a reason I'm wearing this shirt.
Okay.
This Blaze of Glory shirt. This was actually a recent fundraiser that Claire Kramer did through Stans, where she was raising money for TakeThis.org, which works towards promoting and providing resources for mental health.
Oh.
And I thought, you know, the fact that she did
seems
that
very relevant.
Yeah, I felt like that was particularly relevant for this episode. Aside from
That's
the fact
awesome.
that I was like, this is pretty cool. But I thought, you know, it's interesting that the actress that plays Glory, who was causing so much destabilization, is now doing these kinds of fundraisers for mental health services.
Yeah.
I'll drop the link to TakeThis.org in the chat, because the fundraisers through Stans are always for a very limited time period.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been closed now. But the TakeThis.org is I've checked them out, and they have a lot of great resources. And they do fan conventions and things like that, apparently. So I was like, cool, I'm going to wear it for this episode since I'm going to make it.
Well, I'm glad you did. Well, let me go ahead and head it over to Emily. Emily, hello.
Hiya.
Hi, welcome. Is this your first time here?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I've only just joined the Patreon.
Sweet. Well, thank you for that, and it's always nice to see new faces. Can you tell me a little bit about when you watched Buffy? Have you seen all of Buffy and Angel? You know, sort of the show your first time through, how many times now, so forth.
Yeah, so I started watching Buffy about 12 years ago, so when I was 16. And obviously I was just the perfect age.
Yeah,
so
spot on.
Being like, you know, a lonely, weird 16-year-old just finding this show. I was like, oh my God, this is speaking to me. Just devoured it all. Like I went through, I had a bit of a weird watching order. So I started with season 2 of Buffy and went back and forth between Buffy and Angel, but like,
it's interesting.
Pretty quickly.
In the streaming era, which we are officially in, Lonnie and I were talking last night about how I haven't thought about cable in years. I haven't thought about cable. I'm sure some people do, but most of the people that I'm close to and all that think about streaming services and a la carte purchases and all of that. That experience of catching a show in its, Star Trek in season 3, and going back and watching Buffy season 1 again. So what was your first season?
So my first season was season 2, and it was actually through the DVDs.
That's it was based wonderful onboarding.
Yeah, like I'd heard Buffy was a good show, and I'd heard so much that season 2 was a lot better than season 1.
Yeah,
and I was like, it's the box set is the same price. I'm going to get the one with twice the amount of episodes and is better.
Yeah. And I mean, full acknowledgement to everyone out there, because whenever one of us expresses an opinion, whatever opinion is expressed on the internet, the other opinion gets raised 3 or 4 times. I know there are people who love season 1, and doing what I do, I've also...
I like season 1.
Yeah, I like season 1. I didn't when I started doing this, but I do now. But I have even seen people who say that season 1 is their favorite. So we get it. You're just saying season 2 was your onboarding.
Yeah. I think Buffy season's weird because is any season I've seen lots of people say that's their favorite season, and some people saying that's their most hated season. They despise that season.
Very rare for 4 and 1, but I have heard people say that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Did you watch? So did you pick up the Angel DVDs, or have you seen all of Angel, or have you seen Angel only once?
Yeah, no, I've watched Angel quite a few times. I think I like it like a lot more than perhaps some Buffy fans, but like Buffy is my main love.
Yeah.
But I do find like there's a lot to love in Angel, I think.
It's definitely we have some Angel First fans here, and every once in a while I've met someone who started with Angel, which I think is a bizarre. Can you imagine watching all of Angel first and then watching Buffy? That to me is somehow baffling.
Yeah, I actually got my sister to watch Buffy through Angel. Like I got her into Angel first. She didn't like
too.
Buffy when she started watching it.
Yeah.
I don't know
Angel,
why that is.
For some people, I mean, the title is either Buffy the Vampire Slayer is either adorable and an attraction in and of itself, or it's kind of a block, where it doesn't sound like many other things out there. But Angel, the story of a vampire detective, is pretty accessible.
Yeah, I also think like the style of it, the broody, angsty man doing a redemption. That's
something we're very familiar with.
Far more familiar that people can latch on to. People, there's the sort of the dismissal that people have towards anything relating to teenage girlhood, like the reflexive thing, sort of that people have, that I think people have towards Buffy, that they wouldn't have towards Angel.
It's interesting that you point that out, because there's an implied shallowness to it that for some reason we don't levy against teenage male perspective. You have entire movies about the male sexual journey as a teenager, and it's a whole genre of comedy, and yet interesting. I never thought about that before.
Yeah, it's sort of like how you get the amount of vitriol towards Twilight, and I never liked Twilight, but that's a good case study of something that's like a bit shitty for teenage girls that is just outright despised by people who have never watched it. Whereas something that's a bit shitty for teenage boys, you go, oh, whatever, it's Transformers, it's whatever teenage boys like, it's just no big deal.
that makes me feel kind of ashamed because my review of Twilight is the most dunking on anything that I probably have done on the channel. And boy, is that low-hanging fruit, but
I mean,
hopefully I've made up for it.
worthy of dunking, but...
Yeah. Well, so we're on season 5. You're onboarding here, sort of at the midpoint. Where does season 5? What does season 5 sort of mean to you? Where's your favorite seasons in Buffy versus all of that? Kind of tell me about specifically the show itself.
Yeah, like I go back and forth a little bit. Like 2 and 3 and 6 is rising up there, but I think 5 is my favorite season of the Buffyverse.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I think it's my favorite. Like, just I think this is where the show is best at having the themes and ideas that they have and just spreading that throughout the entire season. Like, it's in every episode, the ideas that talking about death.
Where season 4, it seems to me like a big old makeup for, it's not the fault of the creators what happened in season 4, but season 4 variously collapsed at different points, and the theme sort of gets muddled and lost and handed off to Riley, which is a problem, and Dr. Frankenstein disappears halfway through the Frankenstein season. And season 5, that structure is so present and there. Every episode is in some way commenting on that metaphorical structure, which I do love that metaphorical structure. We just talked about how sometimes it feels like the cart leading the horse when it comes to character. But The Gift is my favorite season finale. It's either The Gift or Not Fade Away. I go back and forth. I get the complaints about both of them, but because The Gift is the payoff that metaphor was building to emotionally the entire season, and it is deeply affecting. But I suppose I personally struggle with some of these earlier episodes to get to The Gift. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like, I definitely agree. This trilogy, the Dreary Trilogy, comfortably the worst part of season 5.
Yeah,
like I
easily.
have a few criticisms of Glory as a villain as well, but
yeah, like whatever you think of the Knights of Byzantium and all of that, I don't think it holds a candle to how slow these 3 episodes are.
I actually love the Knights of Byzantium. I will defend the Knights of Byzantium any day.
We needed a Knights of Byzantium defender. Good.
Yeah, it's the whole this season. I call it the high fantasy season, because you've got these knights coming in. You've got
a god.
Gory's minions. You got a god. You got her minions that they call hobbits several times.
Yeah.
It ends with Dawn in her princess outfit strapped to the top of a tower, and Buffy's climbing to the top to rescue her. There's a literal dragon that comes out the portal.
Yeah, that's lovely. I didn't put all that together. That's terrific.
So I just think it fits with that idea. Those ideas that are there.
Yeah, I love it. So listening to Fear specifically, does the episode work for you? What do you think of the monster?
I think it's the one I like the most of this trilogy, and I don't know if it's the best. It's just the one
it's the least
get
worst.
the most enjoyment out of. Yeah, I have a lot of anger towards Into the Woods.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy that video. I think.
Well, we hope. I'm gonna enjoy it being done. I like talking about stuff like The Gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And the monster design.
Yeah. It works for me.
Oh, good.
I like it. It looks very Doctor Who to me, and I'm a big Doctor Who fan. That's my other big fandom, and it's just that kind of slight goofiness. It works for me.
You're talking about slight goofiness. That's not the. I think you're talking about camp then, right? Like that first season. You're talking about that first season camp, or what do you mean by slight goofiness? I've watched up to the end of the Matt Smith era.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, just kind of it just looks a bit crap. It looks like a person in a suit, and I just kind of enjoy that. There's no, I don't really have anything deeper to say.
No, I love it. That's perfect. So Shadow, listening to Fear. All right, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Okay, like this kind of the Drew trilogy. It feels like a training exercise for season 6 in a way for me.
It does.
I think they get a lot better at the things they do.
The balance. I think that's the reason why the trio are such on the nose, straightforward comedy. Like they are so broad until you get to Katrina, where you see that what the intent of them being that way was what they were talking about in terms of like how misogyny permeates all elements of culture, not just alpha quarterback culture, but nerd culture. I think it was a commentary on that just because, you know, well, we'll get to the trio in a minute, but until that point, like they were a very broad, you know, Sean Connery would, Timothy Dalton would take the Emmy and hit Sean Connery over the head with it. You know, very broad humor in the midst of what Buffy was going through, which is this level of grief and darkness and nihilism and all of that in that season. And I think that helps. I hated the trio the first time through, but the more I watch it, the more I think that helps balance that stuff, and that's missing in these.
Yeah, I think as well, maybe it just doesn't just come together as well. Like this episode kind of reminded me of Flooded in a lot of ways, and especially the scene with Buffy at the sink when she's cleaning the dishes, and that there's a very similar scene in Flooded where she's watching the water go down the plug hole, but that feels so just better tied to the rest of the ideas in that episode. And it's just, I don't know why they made this a demon and alien, like other than they wanted to have an X-Files.
Yeah, they wanted to do an X-Files thing. It just feels like weird timing.
Yeah, like they just couldn't find anywhere else to put it, so they're like, well, let's put it in this connective tissue episode. But
yeah, Jack and I were talking too.
It's not tied together.
We're doing the trial in 2 weeks, and the trial's entire trial section is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's beat for beat the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and the line between homage and them being on a, you know, I'm not throwing it like needing to get a show done in 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks to film, 2 weeks to whatever it may be. I think is sometimes blurry. This feels homage-y to me more so than the other one, but I never can tell. I'm not clear on what that line is.
Yeah, so I don't know if like this is relevant, but like I've never seen the X-Files. I've never seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah.
This episode felt to me like an X-Files homage, whereas I've watched Trial and I've never noticed until you like pointed it out in your video. I just didn't know that. Whereas this was very obviously like, oh, they're doing the X-Files. I never seen an episode of the X-Files.
That's interesting.
It feels to me like they're doing. Like,
yeah, like you're talking about the flavor is here of the X-Files, and so they're sort of leaning into the flavor of that, where it almost feels just more convenient.
I don't know. In the trial, it just seems to like, it's like a fun bonus if you get that what they're doing, but otherwise, if you don't know what they're doing, it's like, well, this still works. I
don't know. That is a tough line. Well, I do need to move forward. Is there anything else you wanted to throw out about whatever episode it is we're talking about? I'm sick. Listening to Fear.
One last thing that only really came to me when Sarah was talking about Riley and is getting his suck jobs. It kind of clicked to me how it's kind of again practicing for season 6, that's what Buffy's doing in season 6 with Spike. And
Yeah, that hit me in Into the Woods.
It's very, very similar in that kind of like.
If only
she's self-harming in that way.
Yeah, if only As You Were did a better job of addressing that and didn't.
Yeah, I feel like somehow Buffy is blamed more for what she does with Spike than Riley is for what he does with the.
Buffy gets blamed for everything in Into the Woods. Buffy gets blamed for everything. Let's not go into the woods yet. All right. Well, thank you for coming. Super happy. Let me go to Tom, and then we'll go to Boris, Jackie. Oh, I forgot. There was a donation earlier, and I forgot to acknowledge. Let's see if the buttons work. Boop.
Of capitalist superiority.
The buttons work, and you guys are dancing around the edge of it, so I appreciate it. Thank you. You guys are my favorite button.
Also, someone needs a bucket.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Get out!
What? No, I just get out, and didn't bucket.
I'll take away your bucket.
There we go.
I'll bucket.
All right, let me go to Tom. Tom, sir, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you, Ian? Feeling sick, I am.
Usually this last ditch, like 12-hour a day editing, recording, all of that is enough to get to the end of the video, and then I get sick for 2 days. But this time I got sick because Into the Woods is longer than Restless now. I got sick before that. We got to the end of it.
So do you have cicadas where you are?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm new where we are.
Okay.
Maybe?
Well, you'd know if you
did. No, haven't heard them then.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in Illinois, and we had them every season, and I think we even got them in Colorado from time to time. But yeah, so you've got some. I actually like it. It's not it's not that grinding. They're gross. Bugs are disgusting, and I don't like going outside. But I do enjoy the sound of the cicadas because I probably have a nostalgia for it growing up where I did.
Yeah.
Well, listening to Fear.
Yeah, I don't dislike it that much. I kind of enjoy it when it's on. It's not one I would seek out on a if I was looking for a random episode of Buffy to watch, it wouldn't be one I would seek out. But when I do a rewatch, I do watch it and enjoy it. I agree, it's the best. It's the best of the three, best of the trilogy, but which isn't saying much. But
it's funny. I think Into the Woods is the one I hate the most, and I think is the best one of the three, which is in the review. But in terms of the comedy and the jokes and all of that, Into the Woods actually kind of lightens the hell up, which I think we needed from Shadow and this one. But yeah, to each their own.
But yeah, it always helps for me to call it the Killer Snot Monster from Outer Space.
Yes,
it's a 50s sci-fi. It's a 50s sci-fi movie, so it makes it easier. Because 50s sci-fi movie, a cheesy 50s sci-fi movie.
Did you watch the X-Files?
Didn't regularly watch it. I've seen some episodes, but I wasn't. I think X-Files was on Friday nights, as I recall, and I was never home Friday nights.
You had a life. What must that have been like?
Well, just Friday nights. Yeah, that's where I got together with my science fiction pals, and we would talk about the week's Buffy and other things. And
well, the irony of getting together with a science fiction group and missing the X-Files while it's airing is, I think a heavy one. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't get the 50s sci-fi vibe. I get that with
no, just the title.
I get that. Oh, just the title. Okay.
Just the title, The Killer Snot Monster from Outer Space.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I was gonna say I get that in season 1. The mantis, the shadow fighting on the wall.
Oh yes,
stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I personally like the design of the creature. It's very creepy and kind
of looks like
scary
a cicada.
even.
Looks like a giant, disgusting cicada.
But I also just a little bit of trivia. I'm going to do a few bits of trivia, but the song that's playing on the radio, it is by a group called New Age World, and the title of it is Tahitian Swing.
Interesting.
And
yeah, that was the thing I wanted to be careful about in talking about that song. It's not my taste, but that's neither here nor there. There's lots of
the name of the song is Tahitian Swing, but it's not to my taste either. It's not something I would seek out to listen to, but I did seek it out. Did some research because I wanted to know what the song was.
It's purely that the texture of the song is so unusual in the show.
Yeah,
that it felt to me like it was deliberate and intended as commentary of some kind.
Yeah,
and I could think of a context where that would, in a dance club where you've got not that tiny single speaker radio in her,
right.
But a dance club and wherever the song goes. I like house music. There's lots of music that is repetitive, but in the proper context is enjoyable and meaningful or whatever it is. It's just that song in that particular space.
But the song itself is only about 2 minutes and 44 seconds.
Interesting.
And only about 35-40 seconds of it is that part.
So you went and listened to it?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
If you could go New Age World, Tahitian Swing.
Oh yeah, I'll go have a listen. That's interesting.
Yeah. So that was now the creature itself was played by two different people, two different women.
Okay.
One was
that's weird. Monsters like that always look characteristically masculine to me. Is it the teeth?
Yeah.
What is that?
I think that was the makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I always think of like a remora or a leech or something like that with my mouth like that.
Yeah, the monster that I think they were cribbing on was a fluke worm monster in X-Files.
Right. But one of the people who played the creature was a woman who had been born without legs below the knees.
Huh.
And
I was wondering if it was, I don't know the proper term, a little person in that, or
the other actor was a little person, and she was actually I couldn't find anything with the first woman in it, but Debbie Lee Carrington, who's the other one, who's the little person. She's in a music video by Aerosmith called "Love in an Elevator." You go look, Google, not even just go YouTube.
My sisters loved that song growing up. You said that, and I saw parts of the video in my head.
Yeah, so that's the female little person in that it played some of the for a part of the time played the creature. So
interesting stuff. By the way, I wanted to point out Shiera got my really emote in chat for the Queller is kind of cute. We loveth all of the opinions, Shiera. So thank you. I like that. All right, bud. Is there anything else you want to throw out about this one?
I also too love the rooftop stargazing scene.
It's a lovely moment of intimacy.
That's just absolutely charming.
It's tough to
and the sink.
Go ahead. We're getting a little lag. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be talking over you. The sink. There we go. Caught up.
That's okay. The revelation with Joyce. Joyce is telling Buffy a revelation about Dawn.
Yeah.
And Dawn being a badass.
Dawn being a badass. I wish I'd pointed that out. My goal this season is to advocate for Dawn, and that's where the hashtag We Are Dawn comes from, is because we are Buffy. The show is Buffy's perspective. She is our avatar, and she's me. So anyway, and
I have one more thing.
Yeah, there was something else I wanted to. You said that. Yeah, I lost it. Go ahead.
So I have one more piece of trivia. I gave you a last time we were doing an Angel. I gave you a Buffy trivia. Now this is an Angel trivia for Buffy.
Okay.
There are two characters. This is kind of a trick question. There are two characters that appear in every single episode of Angel, and I'm not talking about Angelus and Liam. Other than Angel, there are two characters that appear in every episode. And it's kind of a trick question, but
oh, okay. I don't have a guess.
Okay, it's in the opening credits. No, I'm sorry, two named characters. Opening credits, we see Rachel from In the Dark, the girl that Angel is helping.
Okay. Oh, that's how you cheated. Got it.
And Dennis, because they always appear in the opening credits from the first episode through the last episode. And the main reason I noticed that was because I used to like to watch the Buffy credits, and I would say, okay, yeah, that's from season 3, that's from season 4. And in season 5, you get from season 5 on, there's only one anomaly, because usually it's if you're in season 4, you get scenes from 3, and 4.
Yeah.
If you're in season 5, you're getting from 4 and 5. But in season 5, there's one scene from Spike when he's driving away from Lover's Walk, at the end of Lover's Walk, and he's driving away singing the Ramones. The Ramones, My Way. And that is in every episode where Spike is in the credits.
In season
That's in season 5. 3.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
But that's in season 3. But everything else, for everybody else, it's only one season back and the current season.
Well, I appreciate the trivia, especially for episodes like Listening to Fear.
No, Ian, stop being sick.
Yeah,
that's an order.
I'm gonna go right to bed and sushi after this,
right.
Or sushi then bed. Boris, let's go. Boris, and then I'm gonna go Kyle. And then, is there anyone else who's not on camera? And then we'll go Josh, and then Jesus Jack. And then I think I've hit everyone. Hi, Boris. How you doing?
Hey, yeah, I just got like the first dose today, so that was kind of neat.
Hey, congratulations! Which shot did you get?
It might be the one that starts with a P. I didn't like
Pfizer.
Think about it too much. Might be that one.
Yeah, we got the Pfizer here too.
There'll be a second dose at some point.
You're a little soft. I don't know if that's me. Emmy earlier was a little difficult to hear as well. But if you if you could kind of, there you go. Yeah, we don't mind getting close.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was able to leap ahead a bit with some shot stuff. So that's at least nice to get something there. So yeah, we got this episode, I guess. I guess the overall quality has been talked about. Like, not great it is.
You're talking about the
yeah,
monster?
I guess the monster is like okay, I guess. Like the design on the back is a little weird. Like that part looked a little off.
He does. Now that Tom mentions cicadas, I can't get the cicada comparison out of my head. There's some. He's not quite roachy. He does definitely have a cicada vibe to him. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and the only real thing I can maybe piece together with it being from outer space is that like they're trying to like have like an allegory for how like the situation with Joyce is kind of outside of the wheel box, and
Comes from nowhere.
The monster is like from space. It's like these are things that they don't usually deal with. But
well, I think we were talking about during the rewatch that the idea of pairing this kind of discomfort or this kind of fear or whatever in an episode called Listening to Fear makes a certain kind of sense. And I think that's fine. It's just, to me, there isn't a reason for the monster to be as gross as it actually is. If Joyce had a massive outbreak of dysentery, that's a different kind of thing, and maybe this monster is more appropriate to that particular story. But in this one, the dramatic motivation for the monster looking the way that it does, and I think it is I like the fluke worm from the X-Files. I think contextually it makes perfect sense in the X-Files. Here, I don't understand the reason for it to be as repulsive as it actually is. And an idea of like design-fitting theme in the demons, the demon in the opening of I, Robot Eugene looked very classic with the Italian monks in whatever time period that was, 1700s. And then, whether you like it or not, it being sort of that robot monster at the end fit Willow and her techno-focus and all of that. So that was an area where design lined up to the fiction that they were telling. I don't understand why this monster looks the way that it does. This was my only point. And I do think it's interesting because I like the fluke worm in the Darren Morgan worm in X-Files.
And then I guess the other question with that demon would be like how exactly does the whole space thing work as far as like what exactly happens like when it gets all the crazy people or like mentally disturbed people? Like, does it just like die off? Like, how does that work exactly?
Yeah,
like,
leave on another asteroid.
And like, how does it get into space in the first place? That's a whole lot of questions. And then speaking of that whole thing, like this episode also kind of makes the same thing from Shadow, where like we have the Scoobies not tell Buffy about stuff, and like they kind of justify, and like they got their reasons, I guess, but it's like you already learned this last time that this is not a good idea. Like this is gonna bite you in the butt, and like they could have called ahead at some point, like when they like if they think there's a risk at Joyce, it's like maybe just like call her up just in case. Like granted, like they think maybe it's Riley has it, but like maybe just in case, just like call ahead. But we can't do that, so we gotta like to get that tension, and it's a little annoying.
I would say if the episode were a little more emotionally consistent, that wouldn't have been a sticking point. But to me the more nitpicky details start to stick out when the episode is not as engrossing as it needed to be. Otherwise, I think we forgive. It's like, well, yeah, that was confusing, but that scene with so on and so forth. And there are a couple of those in this, but it doesn't. They're not scenes that hold the episode together. They're scenes that stand out for us in the series.
Well, yeah, well, yeah, because I guess like with like Wesley in season 3, like you can definitely say he could have done certain things, but like it's a lot more engaged with him, and then like, and they also call him out. And Fred, it's like, you should have trusted us, damn it! What's wrong with you?
Yeah, it's much more. That's grounded in his character. I think the excuse here was having Buffy focus on her mother, but 6 to 1, half dozen to the other.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out like a good Riley line because certain people seem to think those don't exist, and it's
No,
like,
they exist.
well,
They
like,
exist.
it was like the guy's like, "Oh, you shouldn't touch the stuff in that guy's mouth," and it's like, and the guy's like, "Toxic," and he's like, "No, it's just messy."
That reminds me of Xander. Don't tease the demon. No, it's just in bad taste.
Oh, yeah, it's tacky.
In a show like this, it's impossible for any character to not have a single good line. I'm a huge fan of the only moment where I feel like they really stuck Riley's character in a way that was interesting and fun to watch was people say they're recycling. They're not recycling. That's a wonderful Steve Rogers, cheesy, upset over something cheesy kind of line. I think, and there are other Riley lines I appreciate that I see used against him from time to time. I'm not anti-Riley. I'm anti-Into the Woods, which makes you come off as anti-Riley, but I'm not anti-Riley.
That's the whole thing. Like that's for like in 4 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess in regards to Ben, like, something kind of stood out was like how he was talking about like we get like kind of insight into some possible motivation as far as like, he says the hospital's pretty full and that the ones with families are not going to be able to watch them 24/7. And
so let's kill them.
Well, the thing is, like the episode, like it's not really helping, like going against that in a way because like the hospital's incompetent and they're like and they indirectly let these people die because they weren't watching them properly. And like even the guy with the family that like from No Place Like Home, like they release him and then they didn't find his family or they just released him and he's just like walking around. I don't know how he managed to get like that far out. Like
wasn't his family with him in the hospital? I think I mentioned that during the when we were talking previous. And then he's just off on his own.
Yeah, like it definitely is like an indication that like this problem is like.
Oh, he's in the there's no data scene. There's no data scene. He sees Dawn and says that's in a previous episode, and then the hospital's just like get the hell out and kicks him out of the hospital on his own, and he wanders off and gets eaten by the demonic cicada. Yeah,
so like as much as we don't want to like encourage ableism or eugenics or all that, like I kind of want to know like what exactly are we supposed to do about these people like without killing them, because like clearly like there's a possibility that they would just suffer and die, and that's kind of unfortunate.
I think there are a lot of people that are dealing with some kind of issue that prevents them from functioning in normal society, and we have mediums and apparatuses set up to care for them. We don't do this,
I guess it'd be better if like we actually saw some of those in this episode.
Yes, it would be better. If anything, like the fact that there was an epidemic of issues going on like this in the town, if you were writing a story about an actual town, you might start to wonder if there's some kind of biological agent or something, some virus or something that was attacking people, and call in the CDC and lock the town down. And that could have been something they talked about because this is not Glory and Ben's first town, that could have been something they talked about in previous episodes, outbreaks of this kind of problem. You didn't have to have Ben do this, especially if you were going to try and make him an empathetic character in future episodes. But I think this kind of stuff was probably a blind spot for the period it was written in.
Yeah, because like, having like a villain that like kind of feels like, they're kind of doing certain people a favor by dealing with this problem. Like there's kind of an interesting kind of story there. And like, if this was like 7 or something, we could really like, explore it.
Emily pointed out in chat that they roped off the town for that overnight outbreak of laryngitis.
And Hush, yeah.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and I guess this ties into the issue with Ben as far as like we don't really get to have like that counterpoint with like what his perspective is and then compare it to like what Buffy might think. And like yeah, I probably mentioned this before, but like Ben is very much a Ford, and he's like a morally dubious gray bordering on black character, and like we kind of we kind of needed more of Buffy's like kind of like resistance to that or something. And it's also why Faith was effective, because we had like her perspective, like her and Buffy were butting heads on various morals and stuff, and that could have been some interesting stuff to explore. And like it's just kind of
there
there,
were
and we don't do anything.
way more. There were way more interesting ways to develop character here. Tom points out, to be fair, the laryngitis infected the whole town. Fair enough. Just saying, they have done the rope the town off idea before. And at this point, the government probably has its eye on Sunnydale as a hotbed of,
They should have nuked that place from the beginning. Like, just like get the people out, but just nuke it. Like,
yeah, we
and,
can't live here. There's something in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so we get to Dawn, I guess, and like this was kind of a neat thing that led to some other stuff. So like Willow gives Dawn this like fake spell book, and I was like, oh, that's kind of like a little bit of foreshadowing for Forever, when Willow is like giving her the book to raise.
Oh yeah, I thought about that.
And then like it kind of led to me this whole tangent of like, why didn't we have in season 6 Dawn becomes Willow's apprentice? Like, how cool would that storyline have been? Because like, and like the setup is, because the setup is there. We have like Dawn wants to learn magic a little bit, and then like she's also kind of has issues with Buffy. Like Buffy's clearly like been lying to her a lot, and like that could build, and once she comes back from the dead, there's more tension there. There's like clearly like issues going on. Willow has her own thing, and then once Tara is gone, she would find Dawn. She could like train Dawn as her apprentice, because Buffy doesn't want Dawn to be involved in all the magic stuff. So like that creates that connection, and then we could have like and then Dawn and Willow are kind of tempting in some dark magic, but then like Willow goes too far, and then they have to like do stuff with that.
Yeah, it's almost like taking her to Rack too. Feels like it would have fit within the elements of that structure anyway. And yeah, now that you pointed out that there are already details there for that storyline that they didn't do anything with. Someone pointed out Dawn did sort of take over the researcher role. I agree, but at that point in season 7, post whatever the episode is where she thinks she is a potential and finds out she isn't, they were kind of looking for that felt to me like looking for a place to put her within the fiction, where there were some elements here that I think you're pointing out that if they had picked up could have been interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take.
Yeah, because I feel like with season 6 they just did like not much. They got her Kleptomania story, and it's like we're just doing our own thing, whatever.
They may have been a little attached to the idea of magic and queer culture.
But even that up with the drugs and stuff. So I don't.
Well, yeah, and then they muddled it with. I mean, it was always a little bit there because of the Dark Age. So the drug relationship too, which is sort of problematic, layering those two on top of each other, regardless. But something to think about. Or for men, it's although you had Ethan, and Ethan's an old warlock, so I mean, maybe it's not exclusively. He could be, yeah. I don't know. Good stuff. Is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
I guess just like one last thing for kicks is that like I don't like Dawn eating Jello with her fingers. That's just not sanitary at all. Like I don't find it very cute. And like we're 9 episodes in, and like these antics feel like are less excusable at this point. Like she's 14. She can use a fork. It's right there. So
I have no comment.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for the broad strokes, I guess. Let's continue.
All right, bud. Tracy, donation. Let's see if I fix the button.
The dance of capitalist.
Thank you for the dance, everyone.
The dance of capitalist superiority.
Tracy says you're doing well for being sick. Thank you. It's the theater gene. Step on stage and you find energy you didn't know you had, which I love. Let me turn off subtitles there. Turn off captions. So I forgot where I said I was going to go next. Was it Kyle? Kyle.
I think it was.
Hey, bud. How you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. All right. It's been a while since I've been in one of these, to be honest.
Yeah. I have noticed your absence. How have things been?
My sleep schedule is just awful. So,
well,
waking
yeah,
up at 7ish is kind of a rough thing.
Yeah,
for me
Sir Jack wakes up at 5 your time to do the rewatches with us. So
yeah,
for which I'm grateful and will love him forever. But I understand definitely taking the opportunity to sleep in where you need it.
Yeah, well, I've just been perpetually, ever since I got to university, been here for 3 years, I've just slept in every single day. That
was my journey at university as well, so I get it.
Yeah. And then you get into that like cycle where you start like going to bed at 8 a.m. and waking up at like 6 p.m. and stuff like that because you just keep sleeping in more and more.
That was definitely, at that point you just got to go around the bend and have a night where I did that many times. Several all-nighters for papers, but once you're getting to that point where you have met the sun many times, sometimes you just gotta stay up all night and then the next day.
Yeah. Oh well, I just do the thing of like, eventually I'll get a fine sleep schedule if I sleep an extra 2 hours each day. Then I'll fix the sleep schedule overall. So like, if I go to bed at 8 a.m., I'll wake up, and then if I just sleep an extra 2 hours, it will just like kind of work out. After 2 weeks, I'll be in a normal sleep schedule, which I'm currently on right now.
I do not have that regularity. I can't pull that off.
Yeah.
Well, you've missed the last couple, so tables open for things in season 5 you want to comment on. The Dreary Trilogy.
Sorry, what was that?
The Dreary Trilogy here, Shadow, Listening to Fear, and Into the Woods. Wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I guess like my main thoughts is I just don't like the Dreary Trilogy in season 5, despite loving season 6. It just feels like, well, this is actually one of my points. It feels like there's a lot of like things and that they have, for example, a lot of storylines that they test out and then they do it later at much better. For example, you said like I Fall to Pieces compared to Untouched. It's like I Fall to Pieces has the recipe of something decent, which Untouched then realizes.
Right.
And it's just like, it seems like this Dreary Trilogy is kind of like touching on decent stuff that can that they then fully realize in season 6. And then there's like other examples like Superstar to the trio and the trilogy. They kind of touch like they like. I feel like they realized that they did something poorly in an issue or in a storyline perspective, and they just do it better later on.
Yeah, Boris pointed out Ted, the episode
Yeah.
Ted and Buffy killing a human being, and that's sort of being a template for Faith in season 3, but done obviously and developed
Yeah.
in a way that they didn't in that episode.
Yeah, which is actually odd because I think I like Ted more than the Faith storyline.
Wow, that's some blasphemy. I like it.
Well, I love Faith. I love Faith. It's just like I don't know, for whatever reason I like how the Buffy thing in Ted, as much as it get undone by the end of the episode, it's really nice because it's a main character, and if I felt like more attached to Buffy at that point than I did Faith in season 3. So
I mean, in fairness, the first time I watched, I didn't really enjoy Faith's character until, I mean, on my initial run through. First of all, acknowledging too that it's an experience, and that her character is representing an experience that maybe I don't have the same sort of access to as other people do. Which in my case, I don't go, well, she's a bad character. I just go, okay, that storyline is not one that resonates for me personally.
Yeah.
Until you get to 5x5. 5x5 for me is retroactively made season 3 and Faith incredibly more compelling. To sort of realize that was her inner life that was occurring the entire time, that isn't always present there in season 3. We see the signs of it. And then every single time I've gone back and watched season 3, I love it more and more. But I personally, my journey as a viewer, I needed 5x5 to really become invested in her character in a way that I struggled with until then. Because she was sort of relatively bad girl tropey to me. The tempter, straightforward, all of that. And the turn going to the mayor, to me, felt a little left fieldy at the time. But again, those were my complaints the first time through the series. Every single rewatch, I enjoy that season more.
Yeah, I very much echo your position on that as well. First time running through, I was just like, Faith is a cool character, but like tropey cool in a way. Where after watching 5x5, I just loved that series a lot more as well.
It's a depth there that I needed, but granted, I also didn't have my personal journey. I didn't have the same experiences that necessarily made me feel connected to her in the way that I do to Buffy or Willow or any of the other characters at that point.
The only thing is I actually connected with, this sounds really bad, I connected with Faith because I said this a few times before, I'm like utilitarian deterministic. So I connected with our Faith being like, it's just one person, we've saved so many people. I'm like, that's kind of true. Like, that you've done so much more positive. So it's a bad thing, but it was an accident. I would say it's a lot different if you had the intent to kill one person and be like, oh, I just saved all these people. But because it was an accident, it's like, yeah, like, you need to kind of atone for that and not deny reality like she was doing. But like, I don't see like she deserves punishment for that, if that makes sense. 'Cause it's just like, you just need to atone for what you did. And it's just like that. Even because it was an accident.
I think I did a poor job of grappling with the argument that she was making in that episode, and I actually screwed up some of the philosophical points. Might be worth revisiting, because that's not the last time that idea of... I mean, actually, it's definitely worth revisiting, because that's the...
Spike
that is
Buffy?
No, that is Dawn or the world.
I think like... I think Buffy's wrong on that. Granted, I have a newfound perspective on listening to because of listening to Fear, because her mother says make sure that like protect Dawn, which does never get brought. I don't think that ever gets brought up again. That her mother that died says protect Dawn at all costs. I feel like in the body they should have maybe touched on like that. Joyce said you need to keep Dawn safe, but but Buffy said, oh, she's me instead. Like. In the defense of Dawn, instead of saying my dying mother said I had to keep her safe. If that
I
makes
think
sense.
There's a very important ethical conversation there that I probably should have touched on when we were talking about Faith, that I'll sort of retroactively address. The Gift is going to be a 4-hour-long video, but yeah, I'd rather that than Into the Woods. Yeah. Listening to Fear specifically, where does this episode land for you? How do you like the monster?
It's probably my second least favorite episode of season 5. I'd say Shadow is my least favorite. Shadow's kind of just boring to me, but with season, it could
have been called the Dry Trilogy too. A lot of it's pretty dry.
But I did have some headcanon to make the space monster not feel so absurd.
All right.
I just wrote to make me feel better about the space monster. I don't view it as an alien. I view that the meteorite is just conjured instead of it being from something from another planet or outer space. This was in my head canon. This is my headcanon to make the jarring nature of alien monsters from outer space being in the show a little less jarring, because that opens because having alien monsters come from outer space opens a massive can of worms for the show that it just feels weird. So it just the meteorite being conjured feels a lot more feels a lot better for the show itself for me personally.
There is one other incident of, if they're not aliens, boy, is it close. And that is the other planet that Jasmine first visited in Angel Season 4.
Is that another planet, or was that just another dimension?
That's the trick, right? Is it an alien, or is it a demon that came from the sky? That seemed very they seem very alien specific to me, and they get there by jumping through portals, but it may as well have just been another planet that he jumps to. It's they're similar in every way except title. Which is, again, why in the case of this one, saying it's not an alien but a demon from the sky doesn't hold water.
Well, for me personally, it's just the
they say it
imagery of
in the
an alien.
episode. They say it in the episode that Giles says demons now come from the sky. So I think you're spot on. I think, and then whatever gets you there, one way or another, I think
It's just the mental imagery that like an alien snot monster is on a meteorite flying around space to get slammed into the planet seems a bit. It's really weird to me to picture like a snot monster bouncing around space. It's just
let alone one that can be summoned by some floppy-haired douchebag in a hospital on Earth.
I truly did not remember that he just killed 6 people. You bring that up.
I know. It's so
the show
easily
never
forgotten.
cares about it.
Because the show forgets. The show's and that's why. I mean, forever for the rest of the season, I'm probably going to be bringing that up because it is just kind of a problem.
I watched this episode while you were doing the rewatch. I watched it as well, and I haven't seen this episode in a while because I've just been watching people's reactions of the show for the past 4 years instead of actually watching the full episodes myself.
That's interesting.
So I watched the full episode, and all the mentally ill people feel so off. Like the representation feels so off to me, and it feels so rough.
Well, it's very performative, campy. But it is definitely coded as that. As we said during the rewatch, the common I think it was Lady Eternal. The common counterpoint that people brought up to me for that video where I said that the handling of the portrayal of mental illness was a problem was that, well, they're not actually mentally ill. It's like, well, they're magically brain sucked or magically brain damaged or whatever. Like, it's all bad. It's all they are coded as such, regardless. But whatever one you wanna, none of it is justifiable. Especially once you get to the point where we show that Willow has the ability to reverse it. And the Boris pointed out. Sorry, I'm losing focus. Boris pointed out that Giles kills Glory, and which thus eliminating. Giles kills Ben and Glory, eliminating their ability to restore the mental capacity of her minions that are all gathered around the tower. So Bit
with
some issues. Metaphor leading cart.
I don't know if this was said before, but and I don't know if this is wrong, but my perception of Anya is someone that's coded to be slightly autistic. I have an autistic brother, and I just see a lot of similarities from Anya and how she reacts to social circumstances. But I could be wrong on that.
I've heard from fans in the Asperger's community that it's a common reading of Anya as to be an early, not earliest, but an early Asperger's representation on screen. They weren't doing it on purpose, but she has so many of the markers that that it's a reading that I think fits for sure.
Yeah. I had something else. I have a terrible memory. But did we ever find out when did Glory start happening? In the lore of the show? Was she, because they say that the Queller demon has come out and killed a bunch of mentally ill people for centuries. Was that Glory making them all mentally ill for that entire time? Was she just when did she get out of her hell dimension into the Buffy's dimension? When did that happen?
Yeah, and when did the monks get the key? And when Ben was born?
Yeah.
Josh points out, and I saw Jack raise the question in chat. So, was there just this tiny little man baby who occasionally turned into a full-grown woman and went on a shoescapade? Or what? How did that work exactly? And why was Ben the one cursed with Glory's essence? The thing is, as a reading too of Buffy and her being the Slayer, there was something to explore there, and boy did they miss out in not doing that.
Yeah, it's just like, because I swear I had I just did not remember. I was like, when did this all occur? Because it was like, this is such a massive thing to just come out of nowhere. Like, oh yeah, this god just came out in the past 20 years. It's like, it seems like it would be something.
Shira, sorry, buddy. Shira says in chat, Glory is as old as the key, so when Dawn appeared... Dawn's not the oldest iteration of the key. The key has been around for way longer. This season, the monks manifested the key as Dawn, but that whole deal's probably way older. They just had possession of the key at the time and were able to evade Glory. And I think there's somewhere, it might have been in the comic books, there's some interpretation that Glory wasn't powerful enough to surface in Ben for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
I have two more things. So I have just written down, so I'll read it. I think Sarah's thoughts on the Rail situation gives me a clear insight on why I sympathize with him so much, and is why I find the hate for him decently over the top, due to him being at a massive crisis with his identity due to society in a part. And I think we shouldn't judge someone for making bad coping mechanisms as much as... I think we wouldn't judge someone for making bad coping mechanisms as much if it was anyone else, but I could be wrong. For example, he has this... Society has put toxic masculinity on him so hard. All of that is blown up. His entire life has been centered around this. It's all blown up. He's in massive disarray. And honestly, his coping mechanisms are bad, but they're not the worst. So it's just for something that's ruined his entire fabric of what reality is, for that to happen, and he just gets some suck jobs from some vampires, doesn't seem like the worst reaction to it, to something that identity crisis.
I'll be curious if you feel the same way after the Into the Woods video. But first of all, I agree they created a journey for him that I have a lot of empathy for, but the problem is that the journey does not lead to the payoff that it would have required for were Riley any other character. So that journey of amends and atonement and self-awareness, Riley instead solves these problems that were created for him by making Buffy responsible for his decisions, which he's been doing since season 4, and reverting on all his journey from season 4 about rebellion and independence and avoiding groupthink and all of that. And there are signs of it being in order to put emotional pressure on Buffy. So I agree with you. They created a journey that is easy for me to empathize with, but it doesn't pay off. I mean, in fact,
there isn't much payoff.
The finale for it is kind of ugly.
Yeah,
in a way that I think it's important to distinguish between Riley himself and the payoff that the writers ended up giving him in this episode. Plus, you have the issue of what the suck jobs are coded as cheating. Vampirism is a sexual metaphor in and of itself, so to go out and pursue that is one thing. There's also a masochism element to it and so forth. So it is a big deal. But again, I think that doesn't mean that it would have been impossible to have empathy and compassion for him if they stuck the landing on Into the Woods. If there was apology and amends paid and an attempt to atone, and none of that is in that episode.
I don't know if this parallel is off base, but I view it similarly to how Willow reacted to Tara dying, because that was her entire world. The same way that like this masculine idea of like regimented, you have to be a macho masculine standard was like Riley's entire world, and that got crumbled away the same way that Tara got crumbled away from Willow, and they both just go into a very bad way of coping with that. And
but Willow has to reform in season 7.
Yeah.
Willow has to find her way, and Riley isn't forced to do that. In fact, Riley's,
and we don't see Riley doing that either. So
Riley's arc payoff is to revert to what he was doing in season 4, which is deferring his choices and decision to someone else. You can give me an order, he says to Buffy, his girlfriend, which is disgusting. And all the things they went through to break him out of that in season 4, and I'm getting into the woods territory. I do need to move on, but is there anything else you want to throw out, or are you good?
The last thing was going to open a massive can of worms, so probably not. So
all right, let's save it for Into the Woods is going to be a long discussion. Appreciate it. Let me go to. Yeah, no worries, bud. Good to see you again. Let me go to Josh, and then we'll go to Jack, and we'll take it home. Jack's the caboose. Or the... Hi, Josh. How you doing?
How's it going?
I'm good. Just teasing Jack about something we were talking about. Help me out.
I'm here for you, Ian.
Yes, I appreciate it.
I feel like Into the Woods is going to have to be a Restless style Patreon hangout discussion,
where we do it in parts,
potentially. Because, like, I mean, and maybe even where we just convert it to Thunderdome.
Well,
we have two people on screen at the same time talking over each other, because
some of us
is going to be contentious.
Some of us are alphas and some of us are betas.
So I've been told.
And we I want to leave room for both experiences in these kinds of discussions, which is why I went with the one-on-one format for giving everyone a chance to speak. But I like the idea. We'll see how it goes. There's a potential that I don't know if I'll have a 4-hour marathon in me for that, but that's a month away. Let's jump off that bridge when we come to it, Josh.
Fair. So I've been enjoying the discussion. I'm sure you can see from all the typing I've been doing. And but I'm realizing that my experience with season 5 and with Ben in particular, if not unique, is atypical. I don't think that the show ever asked me to have empathy for Ben. I don't think the show ever tried to make him sympathetic to me.
Did it try and make him likable?
I don't think the show ever tried to make Ben likable to me.
Okay.
Because for me, Ben is one of the little bads of this season.
I think he's intended to be, in a Faith kind of way.
No, more like in a Trick kind of way, or in a Drusilla kind of way.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought up the mirror with Dawn, because I absolutely think that if Glory is the dark side of Buffy, then Ben is the dark side of Dawn.
Interesting.
And that's his role as the little bad in this season. And the reason why it never came across as sympathetic or empathetic or likable is because he behaves selfishly and childishly and sociopathically throughout the show. Like, even in I Was Made to Love You, when he's trying to flirt with Buffy, and he comes up, with the punch after Buffy and Spike have their brief conversation, and he was like, "Was that guy bothering you? Should I get like inappropriately masculine or something?" Like, it's such a middle school boy's interpretation of what a man is supposed to do.
Right.
That it's
note to self: don't do that.
Yeah. It's all childish all the way through, and that's the final face-off that Ben and Dawn have in Weight of the World is Ben choosing selfishness and Dawn choosing selflessness.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm just saying, like, I mean, the go-to has been Faith. Faith was a little bad in that season, and
Faith Faith has the misfortune of being so good that everyone else looks bad when compared to her.
Yeah. Ben is so non-complex. He has the trappings of complexity, but they don't pay off in his character in any kind of interesting way. And I think that's the frustration with Ben, is the whole journey of a man with a godlike, an evil feminine god inside of him, you know, and all of that, and the things that could have potentially been used for, the ways it could have informed him in some kind of interesting way, just don't come to fruition. And unlike Mr. Trick, who was in part of a season, Ben's here the whole way.
Right, but nobody's. So I'm with you on the problematicism of the disposable characters in this episode being portrayals of mental illness.
Sure,
but I'm not with them being brushed off by the show or by the writers in relation to Ben never suffering consequences for them, because nobody ever asks for justice for the pizza delivery guy that Trick ate, or the drive-thru attendant that Trick ate, or Sheila from School Hard that Drusilla ate. Like they don't get any justice or payoff. I'm unbothered by that as I'm unbothered by this for Ben.
Okay.
I'm unbothered by an evil character doing evil things.
Yeah, I think the context of that, I get you. I think the context that I entered into that conversation with was for the purposes of treating an entire demographic in that as disposable in that fashion, which we agree on. I don't have the same experience of the season that you do, where it does feel to me like they were trying to make Ben compelling at the very least as a potential love interest for Buffy this season, which, you know, Parker was a better sell pre The Harsh Light of Day than Ben was to me.
See, that may have been a consequence of the decision to make his character male, and because I think that I Was Made to Love You. You know, we're all over season 5 here.
Yeah.
I think in I Was Made to Love You, the point of that episode was Buffy choosing self-love as validation for herself instead of an externalized form of love as validation for herself. Like, she literally has a heart-to-heart with Xander where she says, I should get comfortable just being with Buffy. Like a literal heart-to-heart, because Xander's the heart. And that being the necessary mindset for her to be in, and the gift to be able to sacrifice herself and save Dawn and save the world, is mirrored against Ben. And I'm going to use a different word, Ben tempting her away from that, Ben tempting her towards a childish externalization of love in that episode, which they framework of flirtation. They put in the framework of attempting to date. But what Ben is tempting her towards is selfishness.
Okay.
And his whole character existence in this season is that childish selfishness. I mean, the argument that he has with his boss when he gets fired, where he's like, you know what, it's been like this my entire life, and he storms off with his toys. You know, like it's that's what the whole thing is. And so
I love what you're saying. I like that. I also don't think that any of that needed to be done at the exclusion of making him interesting. I mean, like, or at least creating some level by which we can. I love, for instance, there's some. I mean, Mr. Trick is a. I get so tired of the word problematic, but there are ways in which Mr. Trick is a problematic representation. However, he also has some interesting social commentary to offer in the episode about Sunnydale, and the couple of when the mayor brings him into his office and the way he assumes and what his life was like long before he became a vampire. Like, yes, all of that is tropey and stereotypical, but it is at least offering, attempting some kind of commentary above and beyond this one-dimensional. Like, I think the objection is the one-dimensionality of these things, as opposed to I think what you're highlighting is that Ben does fit the theme. He absolutely does fit the theme. The theme is the most complex, most structured theme, probably of any of the seasons. But I do think that it comes at the expense of some of the characters having any depth or being interesting. And honestly, I feel the same way about Glory. I think that Claire Kramer is a delight. Glory, Sarah has pointed out that the ways in which Glory is interesting that I didn't have access to before, which I love. I want to have those experiences with these characters, but I always felt like she is not as compelling in terms of depth of character or as some of the other ones that we get on in the series. So to me, what you're doing is you're making an argument that the theme stands up and he fits well within it, and I already agree with you. I think that the issue is just it's less fun to spend time with his character on screen than it could have been. My other example of this, the classic example, is Connor. Connor is motivated, understandable, fits within what they were trying to talk about, and no fun on screen. Glory's at least fun, but in terms of theme preempting character, until Connor looks at Jasmine and says, "I know what she looks like," I can't stand him. And it's just for the same reason. It's just the one-dimensionality of it all. So
I mean, I definitely agree that Ben is underdeveloped compared to a lot of the other villains we've had on the show.
Well, but I think Ben and Glory, Glory is at least performatively interesting, but her most interesting moment comes talking to Dawn in The Gift. That moment of intimate conversation between the two of them where she's summoned because Ben is more repulsive to Dawn in that moment than Glory, which I think speaks to what you're talking about they were actually going for with Ben, which I think is great. But that is the moment where she at least becomes as interesting to me as a character.
Well, it hits for me a little bit more, I think.
As opposed to a symbol.
Sure. It hits for me a little bit more, I think, also because I've made peace with this in season 6. Season 6 is, in my opinion, the peak of the mind, heart, spirit metaphor in terms of its effectiveness and its writing and its payoff at the expense of the characters. It gets way overbalanced into the metaphor, but I've made my peace with that, and so I think that I guess some of that piece is bleeding over into season 5 a little bit. Where
no, I like it.
I love Ben. I love Ben as a theme. I love Ben as a foil. I love Ben as a villain. To me, this episode is the introduction of the little bad of the season.
Okay, I like it. I don't.
This is what Ben is unambiguously presented as an evil threat.
Yeah, I don't have the same experience of his character this season as you do. So for me, and we didn't know that he was a little bad for another, which I think is a problem for that interpretation.
For both seasons 4, 5, well, both for all 3 seasons 4, 5, and 6, I have a different interpretation of the big bad, little bad structure than what is as intended.
Yeah. Well, no, I like it, man, and I always, especially when it comes to the things that frustrate me about the show, I always want to be told I'm wrong, so that I can at least have a chance to. I have a chance to have I want the better experience.
I think it's hard to
more
say
out-
wrong. I think it's hard to say right or wrong. I think it's hard to say good or bad when it comes to art interpretation.
Well, no, you know what I mean. But like, I want that enjoyable experience. I don't like being a negative, which is why the Into the Woods video has been so hard to write. All right, well, I do need to move on. Is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
The origin of Ben's name.
Okay.
So obviously Ben is short for Benjamin, which comes from the Bible, and in Hebrew, Benjamin means son of the right side, which doesn't really mean all that much to me, except that the right side, the right hand of God, is said to be righteous, and Ben is directly related to a God here. But that also in the Hebrew Bible
implies balance to me, right versus left, and that he's one part of a balanced whole. In the Hebrew Bible, go ahead.
Hebrew Bible, Benjamin was originally named Benani, and Jacob deliberately changed the name because Benani means son of my pain. And then the actual reason why I think he was probably named what he was named was because etymologically, currently Benjamin is viewed through the lens of the fact that Benjamin in the Bible was the youngest child of the family. So in both French and Spanish, it refers to the youngest child of a family, in particular, the baby of the family.
I like
Ben is Dawn. Ben is Dawn.
Jess, a long time ago, told me that she did a bunch of research on the names of the characters, and there are tons of interesting details down to Willow and Xander and all of that. Someone needs to make that video that isn't me. All right, bud. Well, I appreciate it. Let me go over to Jack. Wait, did I miss anyone? Okay.
No.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing? You look sleepy.
I'm fading, man. I'm fading very, very quickly. I am so tired.
You're still in recovery. I'm tired and sick too.
It's okay though. I'm here and I'm woo.
You're lovely.
Yay. So are you. You're lovelier.
Thanks.
So, Ian, I don't have a lot to say about this episode because I forgot to do a solo rewatch where I take notes. So I've got
no
notes.
good. We I hope that you have a smile at me using my conversations with everyone else as a way of poking you when you don't get to talk. Specifically about the monster and all of that. So it's all in good fun, I hope you know.
Of course. Even if it wasn't, like, whatever.
I did stop short of just asking people to just say Jack's wrong and I'm right, but it was close.
Wow. Okay, now I'm awake. Excuse me? No, it's cool. Shit. I should have taken notes while people were talking so I could respond to some things that people said. But I agree with Josh a lot in that I don't particularly feel anything. Yes, Josh, I agree with you. In that I don't particularly feel anything for Ben until the gift, of course. But I don't particularly like him. I think
his turn in the gift is just evil, though. I have no empathy or compassion for that character until. Oh, you're talking about at the Giles scene. Us? Yeah. Of course. Okay, I do there.
So, like, in the writers trying to make him so likable, it comes across as smarmy to me, and I don't trust people that seem smarmy because I'm like, there's something wrong about you. Even though, like, I'm not really an untrusting person. I'm pretty open, but I don't know. There's something about Ben that just rubs me the wrong way. But yeah, and I don't particularly feel empathy for him until the gift where Giles kills him because, like, yes, he has killed people, but he's a victim in the same way that Spike and Angel are victims, right? It's not necessarily his fault.
The point of damage, though, is that they begin as victims and become the thing that was done to them. You know, which I think is a risky
Right.
interpretation of the way abuse works. Because
Yeah.
we don't want to stereotype survivors.
Right.
But Bethany
That-
is a counter to that, so those do exist in
Mhm.
that universe. Go ahead.
That's why I do want to add the caveat, though, that I mean, Ben is a doctor, and a doctor basically swears an oath to help people and to do no harm. And I find it odd to me that a doctor chooses to deal with these mentally ill or people that have lost their mental faculties by summoning a demon to kill them.
Yeah.
Like, you would think that a doctor would give them the best possible care, put them in care homes or set them up with carers or something, you know?
Well, and his excuse is cleaning up Glory's mess, presumably so that he can keep his life and doesn't get kicked out of Sunnydale. But it's not as
Right.
if Glory was going to allow them to leave
Right.
anyway.
Right. Yeah. So look, I'm not saying that Ben is innocent, because he isn't, and he does things. He does awful things that he didn't have to do, but he doesn't choose his situation, though, is what I mean. In that he's a victim too. Yeah. There was some mention.
There was a I think there was a mention in chat too, like Ben abdicates his choices. I mean, that's the destination of that character is he doesn't. The Boris was making the comparison to Ford, which I really
see
like.
you guys in chat, by the way. He has a choice.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't have a good choice, but he has a choice, and he takes the Ford route. Ford's a great comparison. He takes the Ford route at the end of that season, and you know, so yes, victim. Ford was a victim of his illness.
Yeah,
but
ultimately, it's not an excuse. No,
right.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just don't really give a shit about Ben, because whatever. Like, I don't particularly like him. It's like,
I think
all right.
you summed up my feelings about him. I find his face and his sledgehammer of a chin kind of irritating.
Like he's very chiseled, good looking, but I just kind of want to punch him at the same time. Like, and I don't know. He just bugs me. There's something about him that's smarmy and just, I don't know. He bugs me. There was mention of Buffy and Dawn and the gift, and I'm gonna save it mostly for when we get to the gift. But I just want to say that Buffy is completely, unequivocally, and indefensibly wrong in the gift, hands down. There is no argument, at all.
We don't trade lives, Captain.
Hang on, what? What do you mean? What's that from?
We don't trade lives, Vision.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. No, but you're trading. So what? Trade one life for $7 billion? That's gonna die anyway.
Was Cap wrong? Should they have just killed a Vision on the floor right there?
Yes. Yes, I think so. Probably.
Yeah, Boris points out it's a trolley problem.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I don't know, Buffy bugs me. She bugs me because it's like you're going to sacrifice 7 billion people for one person who's going to die anyway. Like, I don't know. It's
the baby Hitler question. Do we kill baby Hitler? I mean, but because baby Hitler's an innocent, and I mean, Dawn's not Hitler, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like,
no,
she can prevent an apocalypse. I don't know. It's one of the unending philosophical moral questions. I have my perspective on it.
It would be hard to kill your own sister. I get that. Blah, blah, blah. I get it. But she's still wrong. She's just wrong.
I love how you just yada, yada, yada'd. yeah. You know, it's hard to kill your sister, yada, 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 but she's wrong.
She is. She's wrong. Absolutely wrong. I don't know. I look forward to everybody dogpiling me because I'm getting used to that. So
no,
I'm looking forward to it.
I think
Bring it
there
on.
are. I think I don't think you'll be alone in that interpretation of The Gift, and I think that's one of the part of the brilliance of The Gift is it sets up a moral question that does not feel like it has a clear answer, as opposed to what Faith did, which was I just murdered a guy. Yeah, but where it's being used as an excuse after the fact, as opposed to make a decision one way or another about. And I love the parallels between. I mean, it makes sense, obviously, but I love the parallels between the MCU's beats like that.
Yeah.
Like the Angel Bucky parallel is one of my favorites. Those things you did all those years ago, they weren't you. I know, but I did them.
Yeah,
and
it's very
there's
interesting
one
to think about.
Sure. Yeah, that's part of the reason I do what I do.
Yeah,
as I love grappling with that stuff.
But this episode, I mean, I don't dislike it, but it's wouldn't even crack like top 100 episodes for me. Yeah. I really like Christine Sutherland's performance with the Queller Demon. I think there's some horror elements that are done really well. The Queller Demon itself, I like it, as we talked about in the rewatch. I do like it, but it's just weird and clunky. Like, there's no way that thing would be able to move around as quick as it does and cling to ceilings. It's got these tiny stubby arms and it's this long body. I don't know. It's
a very strange choice.
It looks cool, but it's impractical. Totally impractical.
And because it doesn't feel specifically motivated by the design of it doesn't feel specifically motivated by the story that it's in, it just becomes confusing. Why does it look like that?
Yeah, I mean,
not that it always needs a justification, but when you talk about Moloch in season 1, that he's a trope demon, horns and teeth, and like he's trading on an image we're very familiar with.
Personally, it doesn't bother me too much, but I do get what you mean. I get where you're going with that. I like Kyle's idea that the Queller was summoned into the meteorite rather than it, coming from space, because like in introducing extraterrestrials into the show in season 5 is just an odd thing to do. And I mean, not including the comics, I think this is the only time the show really does anything with aliens or extraterrestrials. Like, I don't think it does anything else. I mean, it could have been an interesting thing, but then it takes it, like, it removes, like, when you start opening that, you get into like science fiction and science rather than like mystical energies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, those things would kind of clash a bit, I think.
I mean, I think that you're also highlighting what was one of the fundamental issues with season 4 is that the science this group isn't great with science fiction. They're great with fantasy, but the initiative was a science fiction concept. With ray guns and Xander talking about I didn't get my advanced degree in starship technology. And I think that was a struggle in that season because it lacked authenticity. So, well, I do need to move on, but I'm about to. We both need to go back to bed.
That's it for me. Cheers. It's an okay episode. I don't hate it, but I don't like it either. Cheers.
All right, my friends. Well, we went a little bit long today. We had a couple of new faces, which I love to see, but I don't like to put new people on a 10-minute timer. I think it's a lot of pressure just being here for the first time as it is. So, and Into the Woods is in a month, so maybe this is practice for Into the Woods. We shall see. Or maybe we got some of it out of our system. I doubt it. 2 weeks we are doing the trial. So, Trial Angel in 2 weeks. I'm going to be working on Into the Woods tomorrow, the episode guide. And I think that's it. So that episode guide will be up in a day or two. Unless I am more sick tomorrow than I am today, which seems unlikely. So, did I forget anything?
Get some sleep.
All right, bud. I appreciate it.
Don't
Thank
rush
you.
the guide if
both
don't
of
have to.
you.
What was
Like,
that?
if it takes a week to finish the guide, do it. Don't rush this.
I appreciate
It's
it.
already
It's going to be a long one.
And I think there was something about you're going to record another podcast tomorrow, or this
Probably
this coming-
Monday. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're talking about. We are rewatching. Josh, Sarah, and I are watching Star Trek V on stream tomorrow.
Yeah, on my channel.
Sarah's
I
channel.
was actually talking about you and Jack doing the podcast.
And then Jack and I are recording the podcast on Monday.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks. New video in a day or two.
But boy.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.